Chapter 361. Old Turtle wasn't tall, much shorter than Coffin Man. His back was hunched, and he held a walking stick in his hand. His hands were currently trembling, and he had to rely on Coffin Man's support. Since Appraiser Lin isn't home, perhaps this is my fate. Old Turtle's voice was hoarse, and he looked dejected. He had suffered too much over the years. Just like Madame Ghostchild and Coffin Man, he had to use symbiosis to protect his pet beast. Unfortunately, his cultivation and capabilities were inferior to Ghostchild and Coffin Man, so the backlash he suffered was greater. He was now at the end of his rope. Old Turtle even felt that he might not survive the night. Coffin Man looked grim as well. He was the one who brought Old Turtle all the way to Maple City to seek Appraiser Lin's help, but to no avail. If Old Turtle lost his life because of him, Coffin Man would surely be filled with guilt. Is Appraiser Lin really not coming back tonight? Coffin Man couldn't resist asking. Xiao shook her head. Shanger also said, Master Lin didn't say when he would be back. But normally, unless there's something important, he should be back tomorrow morning at the latest, or tomorrow night at the latest. Shanger wasn't lying. This was Lin Jin's habit. Sometimes, he would cultivate so he wouldn't return until the next morning. But this wasn't a guarantee. Coffin Man knew that Old Turtle wouldn't be able to wait that long. Shanger could tell that these two were here to seek medical advice. Although she knew that Lin Jin wasn't a doctor, if it involved pet beasts, he was the right choice. After some thought, Shanger suddenly said, Indeed, Master Lin might not be back tonight. If you don't mind, can you let me take a look? Coffin Man and Old Turtle were stunned. Perhaps thinking that these two were underestimating her sister, Little Five said, Sister Shanger is Master Lin's first disciple. If you're not willing to let her take a look, forget it. Shanger turned to glare at Little Five, who was still unconvinced. She wasn't wrong. After some thought, Coffin Man mused, Since Appraiser Lin is Curator's disciple, this lady named Shang must be Curator's grand disciple. She must be quite capable too. Why not let her take a look? At the very least, it's a last resort. As such, he hurriedly bowed and said, Then, I'll have to trouble Miss Jean to take a look. Old Turtle didn't object. He was already waiting to die. If Old Coffin hadn't dragged him here, he would have been preparing for his funeral. He just wanted someone to take a look at him. What was wrong with that? Over the past few decades, he had sought countless doctors and asked for countless medicines. Naturally, he wouldn't mind doing it again. Shanger was also a little nervous. She had indeed learned a lot from Lin Jin, especially the books Lin Jin collected and wrote. She had read through them many times and often went to the Beast Appraisal Association to help out. However, to be honest, this was the first time he was helping someone to diagnose a disease. To be honest, she was also quite nervous. At this time, the Coffin Man had already explained the situation and pulled up the clothes on Old Turtle's back. Now that they saw what was underneath, both Shanger and Little Five were shocked. On the back of the Old Turtle, there was a huge turtle that was almost sticking to it. However, this turtle was already dried up like a dried fish. It seemed to have become one with the flesh on Old Turtle's back. It was no wonder Old Turtle was hunched over. There was this thing on his back. Most people would be petrified by this scene. However, Shanger and Little Five weren't ordinary people. Despite their shock, they didn't panic at all, especially Shanger. She had heard about the symbiosis from Coffin Man and knew about it. In addition to what she had learned from Lin Jin, she asked Little Five to fetch the needles. She learned acupuncture too. Other than asking Lin Jin for guidance, Shanger mostly learned it on her own. When Lin Jin had free time, he had written down some of the key points of the pulse-seeking technique in a book, and Shanger had already flipped through it more than 10 times. In other words, Shanger knew the pulse-seeking technique too. Of course, her level wasn't as high as Lin Jin's, but she understood basic medical knowledge and acupuncture techniques. In Old Turtle's case, they had to cut off the symbiosis while ensuring that both man and pet beast didn't die. This was the key. To achieve this, they had to use the pulse-seeking technique. Although Shanger was nervous, she had thought through the entire process. She believed that even if Master Lin was here, the method would be the same. At most, there would be a difference in technique. If Lin Jin was here, he would surely be surprised by Shanger's treatment method. Although there were some flaws, it was generally correct. Sometimes, once the direction was right, everything else depended on luck and skill. However, if Lin Jean was here, he wouldn't have let Shang'er risk her life to save Old Turtle. Unfortunately, he wasn't here, and Old Turtle clearly couldn't hold on much longer. Shang'er decisively started preparing to cut off the symbiosis. At the same time, Lin Jean arrived above the royal capital on his eagle. The eagle could fly up to 2,000 miles in a single night. Usually, it would take at least 10 days to travel from Reed City to the royal capital. But with the eagle, it took less than a night. Initially, Lin Jean didn't want to come back to the royal capital. But since he was here to visit headquarters and investigate the Demonic Appraisal Association, he had no choice but to come. The eagle Liu Bin gave Lin Jean was obviously different. It was marked with the royal family's mark, and Liu Bin had mentioned that this eagle could fly into the royal capital without anyone stopping it. Lin Jean gave it a try, and sure enough, he was right. The royal capital was several times bigger than Maple Reed City. The eagle circled around for a while before Lin Jean spotted headquarters and had it land. There were also beast appraisers on duty at headquarters. However, they usually didn't have much to do during the night. Even if they did, their apprentices would help them out. But this time, the beast appraiser who was dozing off was jolted awake by a series of hurried knocks on the door. "What's wrong?" The slightly plump beast appraiser looked drowsy and annoyed. Anyone who was woken up in the middle of the night would react the same way. "Appraiser Ouyang, the chief of Maple City's branch, is here. He says he wants to look through some files," the apprentice reported from outside. "So what if he's a branch chief? Why doesn't he know when he wants to look through the files? This is headquarters in the royal capital, not their branch in a small city." Appraiser Ouyang was visibly annoyed. He hadn't slept well for the past few days, and his head felt heavy. Although he was only a rank 1 beast appraiser, he was a rank 1 beast appraiser from headquarters. Usually, the chiefs of all the branches would treat him with utmost respect. Hence, Appraiser Ouyang didn't think much of a mere branch chief. Usually, he would be polite to these branch chiefs, but now that he was in a fit of anger, he decided to put on a show. Let him wait and see. Furious, Appraiser Ouyang decided to make things difficult for the other party. The apprentice outside knew Appraiser Ouyang's temper, so he kindly reminded him, "Appraiser Ouyang, the chief of Maple City's branch, is a rank 3 beast appraiser." Chapter 362. A rank 3 beast appraiser. Appraiser Ouyang was stunned. His first reaction was disbelief. In the Jade Dragon Kingdom, aside from headquarters, there were no other rank 3 beast appraisers in the other branches. "What nonsense are you spouting? Where did this rank 3 beast appraiser come from?" Appraiser Ouyang opened the door. Although he didn't think this was true, the title of a rank 3 beast appraiser still made his heart skip a beat. It couldn't be helped. In the beast appraiser circle, a rank 3 beast appraiser carried too much weight. This was especially true for someone like Appraiser Ouyang, who spent most of his time in the royal capital's headquarters because he knew very well what a rank 3 beast appraiser represented: honor and unparalleled status. In any case, if this person was really a rank 3 beast appraiser, a mere rank 1 beast appraiser like him couldn't afford to offend him. Appraiser Ouyang glared at an apprentice outside the door with an unfriendly expression. The apprentice was startled, but he still said, "It's true, Appraiser Ouyang. That person is really a rank 3 beast appraiser from Maple City. Have you forgotten? He's the one from Maple City, the one His Majesty gave special permission to." Appraiser Ouyang only snapped out of his daze after the apprentice reminded him. He remembered now. Maple City. There was indeed such a thing. A few days ago, His Majesty the Emperor personally ordered headquarters to grant a rank 3 beast appraiser the qualification to be promoted to rank 3. After all, this incident caused a huge uproar in headquarters. After all, a rank 3 beast appraiser wasn't a child's play. Many people objected to this. Other than a few higher-ups in the association who didn't voice their opinions, most of them disagreed. Some of them even objected vehemently. Even so, there was nothing they could do to change His Majesty's decree. Furthermore, a few higher-ups in headquarters also agreed. Hence, This ridiculous matter to other beast appraisers actually succeeded. This infuriated most beast appraisers. Only they themselves knew how difficult it had been for them to get to where they were today. Even a rank 1 beast appraiser had to start as an apprentice and work his way up one step at a time. Not every apprentice had the chance to do so. Most of them would never be able to become an official beast appraiser their entire lives. Yet, someone actually used the Emperor's authority to forcefully promote a beast appraiser's rank. To most beast appraisers, this was a shameful and dishonorable act. Most of them were jealous and unbalanced. Interestingly enough, appraiser Ouyang wasn't one of them. He wasn't a very sociable person, and honestly, he wasn't well-liked by the other beast appraisers at headquarters. He was considered a marginalized person. Appraiser Ouyang, on the other hand, was motivated to improve himself. Alas, fate made fools of him. He felt that he was born at the wrong time. Truth be told, he didn't think of himself as someone who relied on His Majesty's imperial edict to get promoted. After all, he only managed to get promoted to a rank 1 beast appraiser because he had to pull some strings and pay a lot of money. Because of this, he didn't dislike Appraiser Lin. In fact, he was quite impressed by him. His eyes lit up as he asked, "Are you sure it's Appraiser Lin from Maple City? It can't be fake." All right, that's great. I'll go see Appraiser Lin now." Appraiser Ouyang was overjoyed. He quickly straightened his clothes and rushed out of the room. He didn't look sleepy at all. The apprentice watching from the side was dumbfounded. He had no idea what Appraiser Ouyang was thinking. In fact, Appraiser Ouyang was planning to befriend and curry favor with that rank 3 beast appraiser. To him, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He had been marginalized at headquarters and often had to work the night shift. All he had to do were dirty and tiring work. This was because he had no backing. He wanted to find a backer, but he couldn't find one. Firstly, he had high expectations for himself. Secondly, others looked down on him. However, Appraiser Ouyang had taken a liking to that appraiser from Maple City. If he could befriend him, he would indirectly befriend His Majesty. Appraiser Ouyang wasn't just making wild guesses. Appraiser Lin must have a close relationship with His Majesty. Otherwise, why would His Majesty issue an imperial edict? Not only that, he even went as far as to force headquarters to accept Appraiser Lin's request. Even when more than a dozen beast appraisers joined forces to protest, His Majesty didn't care. In other words, Appraiser Lin from Maple City was definitely someone with a strong relationship with Feng Rue. Now that such a golden backer had appeared, it would be strange if Appraiser Lin didn't find a chance to cling on to him. Lin Jin was currently waiting up ahead. After all, this was headquarters. Even if he, the chief of Maple City's branch, was here, he wouldn't be able to enter even if he announced his presence. Of course, Lin Jin didn't have to come in the middle of the night. But when it came to looking through the dossiers, Lin Jin felt it was better to do it as soon as possible. If it was just the Demonic Appraisal Association and the Qiao family, he wouldn't be in a hurry. But now that the visitation hall was involved, things were different. Lin Jin understood that he couldn't delay this matter any longer. If he did, he might end up inviting trouble. Just as he was deep in thought, he heard footsteps coming from behind him. Turning around, he saw a group of people approaching. The 2 beast appraisers leading the group had solemn expressions, and it seemed like they were from headquarters. Following behind them was a group of people carrying several pet beasts. Lin Jin was familiar with this scene. It must be an emergency. Hence, Lin Jin took a step to the side. "Get out of the way." At this time, they could hear this group of people talking. "I'm dying of anxiety. How'd he get poisoned out of nowhere?" "Who knows? It's a good thing we found out in time. Now that Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow are here, it shouldn't be a problem. I hope it's fine. These pet beasts are too important to our Chamber of Commerce. We can't afford to lose them." As they spoke, they approached Lin Jin. Lin Jin didn't block their way, nor did he try to strike up a conversation. He knew they had something urgent to attend to, so it was better not to disturb them. Of course, out of habit, Lin Jin took a closer look at the pet beasts. They were in decent condition, had decent bloodlines, and were top-notch beasts. However, they looked dispirited, as if they had been poisoned. But with Lin Jin's skills, he could tell with a closer look that these pet beasts weren't poisoned. However, regarding this matter, he would only watch from the side. He would not interrupt, nor would he be a busybody. The two beast appraisers should have a way to deal with this. Both of them were rank 2 beast appraisers, and they weren't young either. One look and Lin Jean could tell that they were experienced. Just then, the two beast appraisers suddenly turned to Lin Jean. The moment they did, they frowned and stopped in their tracks. Who is this? Why does he have a 3-ring beast tattoo sleeve band? We know all the rank 3 beast appraisers at headquarters, but we don't know this person. After exchanging a few words, they cupped their fists and asked, "How should we address you? Appraiser?" They were quite polite. Lin Jean returned the gesture. "Greetings, appraisers. I'm the chief of Maple City's branch, Lin Jean. I'm here at headquarters for an urgent matter, and I'd like to borrow some files." Chapter 363. Maple City, Lin Jean? The two beast appraisers' expressions changed at this. Their initially polite expressions took a 180-degree turn as their expressions turned cold. Lin Jean was baffled by this sudden change. Just as he was wondering, one of the beast appraisers said coldly, "So you're Maple City's appraiser, Lin Jean." I didn't know that appraiser Lin would be visiting headquarters. I apologize for not welcoming you from afar." Lin Jean was dumbfounded by the sarcastic tone in his voice. He didn't know these two beast appraisers and had probably never met them before, so it was impossible for them to have a grudge against each other. So why did their attitudes change so drastically at the mention of his name? This was strange. However, Lin Jean didn't say anything. Before he got to the bottom of the matter, there was no need for him to say anything. At most, he would just find a chance to ask appraiser Tan Sun what was going on. Lin Jean was oblivious to the fact that everyone in headquarters was unhappy with him. After all, his rank 3 beast appraiser status was a privilege granted to him. In the eyes of others, he didn't earn his status through his abilities. Hence, no one was willing to be nice to him out of jealousy. While the people in headquarters had this thought, no one else was aware of it. For example, the few people behind Lin Jean were probably the owners of the pet beasts. Noticing that there was a rank 3 beast appraiser here, they didn't pay attention to the other 2 beast appraisers' thoughts. They immediately stepped forward and said, "Appraiser, please take a look at these pet beasts with Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow. These pet beasts are too important to us. As long as they can be saved, we'll pay any price." That's right. They're somehow poisoned. As a rank 3 beast appraiser, you're capable, man. Please take a look at them. Little did they know that their words had infuriated Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow. Both of them were already in a bad mood, and now their expressions darkened even further. Appraiser Chow gritted his teeth and suddenly said, "Since we're going to let Great Appraiser Lin have a look, then let him have a look. We can learn from Great Appraiser Lin as well." Yeah, Great Appraiser Lin is a rank 3 beast appraiser. "Chief Liu, you guys are in luck. Just let Great Appraiser Lin take care of these pet beasts," Appraiser Wong said with a fake smile. Chief Liu and the others didn't realize what was going on at first, but they weren't blind. Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow were obviously not on good terms with that young rank 3 beast appraiser. They even said those words just now. Wasn't that just adding fuel to the fire? In an instant, Chairman Liu and the others panicked. Appraiser Wong, why don't you take a look? We came to you first anyway. Appraiser Chow, we're old acquaintances. This can't be delayed any longer." President Liu and the others could also see it. Now, they did not say anything more. They only wanted to treat the problem as soon as possible. This was the most important thing. Appraiser Wong was still fuming. But after some thought, Appraiser Chow decided that now wasn't the time to bicker with Lin Jean. The pet beasts of this Chamber of Commerce chief were seriously poisoned, so it was more important to treat them first. After giving it some thought, he said, "Chief Liu, there's no need to panic. Although these pet beasts are deeply poisoned, Appraiser Wong and I have fed them the 3-leaf antidote. They'll be fine for the time being." These words were meant to comfort them. Chief Liu and the others heaved a sigh of relief at this. However, Lin Jean frowned. He obviously knew about the 3-leaf antidote. It was a famous antidote among beast appraisers. Its specialty was its quick effect. No matter how toxic the poison was, it could neutralize the poison in a short period of time and prolong the life of the beasts. In essence, it was a method of fighting poison with poison. Hence, this antidote had to be used with extreme caution. However, Lin Jin could tell that these pet beasts weren't poisoned. Although the symptoms were similar, they weren't. If he fed them the three-leaf antidote under such circumstances, there would be problems. Lin Jin didn't want to cause trouble for himself. He was only here to review the case files. For other matters, he would try his best to stay out of trouble. But sometimes, even if you don't look for trouble, trouble will come knocking at your door. He could ignore it, but if he did, these pet beasts might not survive the night. If that happened, not only would the owners of these pet beasts suffer losses, headquarters would suffer losses as well. The reputations of these rank 2 beast appraisers would be in jeopardy as well. Of course, none of this mattered. What mattered most was that Lin Jin couldn't help it. Ever since he came to this world, he had devoted himself to beast appraising, studying the art of beast appraising. Even though he knew that the other party had made a mistake, it was fine if he couldn't touch it. But now that he did, he had to do something about it. One could say that he was itching for a new skill, or that he couldn't bear to see someone make a mistake in beast appraising, even if it meant offending these two people. Lin Jin didn't really care about such things anyway. They had been rude earlier, and their words were laced with sarcasm. So why should he care? Moreover, he was helping them. It was a good deed. He had a clear conscience. Hence, just as Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow were about to get down to business, someone suddenly said, "We should feed these pet beasts the ice toad blood-dissolving pill. Although it's a little expensive, it's more important to save their lives at a time like this." Once this was said, the entire place fell silent. The pet beasts' owners, who were also Chief Lu and the others, stared at Lin Jin in confusion. Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow were stunned for a moment before they flew into a rage. "You've gone too far. Lin Jin, do you really think that just because you're a rank 3 beast appraiser, you could just ignore the rules and give random pointers? You little brat, you weren't even born when we were beast appraisers. How dare you boast so shamelessly here?" Appraiser Wong's anger had yet to subside. Now that he saw Lin Jin spouting nonsense, his anger flared up again. Most importantly, Lin Jin's tone sounded like he was reminding them. It sounded like they had made a mistake, but he couldn't say it out loud, so he was beating around the bush. Or perhaps he was teaching them a lesson. Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow had quite a number of apprentices under them, so they were familiar with this tone. Usually, they would use this exact same tone to talk to their apprentices. How could they tolerate a rank 3 beast appraiser who relied on his connections to become a rank 3 beast appraiser? Hence, they erupted in anger. Appraiser Chow looked enraged as well. "Appraiser Lin, you've gone too far. Even if we were rude to you earlier, we can talk about it later. Why are you undermining us in public? What are you up to?" Lin Jin frowned. He had been very reserved earlier, giving face to these two appraisers. He didn't say that they had made a mistake by feeding their pet beast poison. All he did was remind them to use the ice toad blood dissolving pill to neutralize the poison. Was that wrong too? Lin Jin had a temper too, so he was a little displeased. "Appraisers, I don't know how I've offended you, but I'm definitely not here to undermine you. Have you thought about the consequences of consuming the 3-leaf antidote despite not being poisoned?" Lin Jin was a little displeased by this. Chapter 364. Lin Jin's intention was to help them, so he had been very subtle with his warning. However, since these two didn't understand him, or were pretending to be dumb, and were even pointing their fingers at him, they couldn't blame him for being blunt. Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow's expressions darkened when they heard that the pet beast wasn't poisoned. As beast appraisers, the most difficult thing to accept was having someone question their diagnosis. The more experienced a beast appraiser was, the more likely it would be. Appraiser Wong and Appraiser Chow were in their 40s and 50s. Coincidentally, they were experienced beast appraisers. To have someone tell them that they had made a mistake in their judgment and given the wrong medicine to their pet beast was like a slap to their faces. "Lin, what nonsense are you spouting? You weren't even born when I started appraising beasts. You're just a pseudo-rank 3 beast appraiser who got promoted through the back door. What right do you have to question our diagnosis? Appraiser Wang immediately turned hostile and voiced his dissatisfaction. At this, Lin Jin understood why these two were giving him the cold shoulder. So it was because of his promotion to rank 3 Beast Appraiser. Now that he thought about it, it made sense. Becoming a Beast Appraiser was difficult. Even after becoming a rank 1 Beast Appraiser, it would be extremely difficult to get promoted in the future. Rank 1 and 2 could be obtained through examinations, but for rank 2 and above, it wasn't something that could be achieved through examinations. It would require a long period of time and the approval of most Beast Appraisers at headquarters before one could be promoted. Of course, most importantly, a rank 3 Beast Appraiser must possess the skill to promote a rank 2 Pet Beast to rank 3 with a success rate of at least 90%. Other than that, one must also have the ability to promote a rank 3 Pet Beast to rank 4 and had at least one successful evolution. Only when these two conditions were met could a Beast Appraiser be promoted. Many Beast Appraisers were stuck on these two conditions. Appraiser Wang and Appraiser Chow were no exception. Although they had gotten rank 2 long ago, they had been trying for many years to reach rank 3 without any success. It could be said that the title of rank 3 Beast Appraiser had become an obsession to them. They had been pursuing and working hard for many years, yet someone had easily obtained it through the back door. It would be strange if they were willing to accept such a feat. Appraiser Chow chimed in coldly. Appraiser Lin, you claim that we've made a mistake, but you've only taken 2 glances at it. How can you be so judgmental? Why don't you step forward and take a closer look before you speak? Compared to the hot-tempered Appraiser Wang, Appraiser Chow was more rational. Didn't Appraiser Lin say that they made a mistake? So why don't you let Appraiser Lin take a closer look? Appraiser Chow was clearly confident in the results of their previous appraisals. After all, he wasn't the only one doing the appraisals. Appraiser Wang was there as well. How could both of them possibly make a mistake? Hence, he was certain that Lin Jin was just trying to pick a fight with him. Since that was the case, he would have to talk things out. He would let Lin Jin appraise the item and see what the result was. If worst came to worst, he would just blow things up and see who would be the one suffering the most. Lin Jin shook his head. I've already appraised him. The result will be the same no matter how I look at him. You too, on the other hand, should take a second look and see if your previous assumption of being poisoned was too arbitrary. This time, Appraiser Chow gritted his teeth in anger. Lin Jin, you're claiming that we made a mistake just by looking at it? Do you really think you're a rank 3 Beast Appraiser? Let's go. Let's not waste our time talking to this kid. Appraiser Wang was infuriated. Let's go. Let's not waste our time talking to this kid. Appraiser Ouyang, who was on duty at headquarters, arrived at the scene. He had already heard the conflict that had taken place here. He even secretly activated his spiritual eye with a spirit talisman to take a closer look. Although Appraiser Ouyang was only a rank 1 Beast Appraiser, he was an experienced man. While he didn't know any advanced techniques, nor did he have a chance to learn them, he was quite knowledgeable when it came to judging signs of poisoning. As he observed, he noticed that the pet beasts were behaving strangely. Logically speaking, if they were poisoned, their conditions should have improved after consuming the 3-leaf antidote. Even if they didn't, they should be suffering from some other form of poisoning. However, upon closer inspection, Appraiser Ouyang realized that the condition of the pet beast was very similar to when one overdosed on the 3-leaf antidote. This was something that could only be proven through practice. It was also because Appraiser Ouyang had made the same mistake in the past. He had given someone else's pet beast an overdose of the 3-leaf detoxification elixir, and it almost resulted in a grave mistake. Hence, the incident was still fresh in his mind. Hence, Appraiser Ouyang immediately noticed something was amiss. Appraiser Ouyang was here to suck up to Lin Jin. Now that he realized that Appraiser Lin was right, his eyes darted around, and he made a prompt decision to step forward. Appraiser Wang, Appraiser Chow, Appraiser Lin is right. These pet beasts are showing signs of poisoning, and it is indeed caused by the 3-leaf antidote. This only proves that these pet beasts weren't poisoned, or else they wouldn't be showing signs of poisoning. Please take a closer look so that you don't mess things up, Appraiser Ouyang said respectfully. Appraiser Ouyang said respectfully. Of everyone here, his rank was the lowest, so he had to humble himself. However, his words made it clear that he was siding with Lin Jin. Ouyang Tong, who gave you the right to speak here? Why don't you take a look at who you are? Appraiser Wang was fuming. Seeing a mere rank 1 beast appraiser daring to question him, he obviously wasn't going to be polite. However, his heart skipped a beat as he instinctively glanced at the pet beasts. Appraiser Chow calmed down slightly. He first glanced at Ouyang Tong. Among the many beast appraisers at headquarters, Ouyang Tong was one of the marginalized. He was neither valued nor liked. However, it was also because of this that Ouyang Tong wasn't likely to be in cahoots with Lin Jin. So, Appraiser Chow came to his senses. Suppressing his initial agitation, he walked over to take a closer look at the pet beasts. This time, his expression quickly stiffened. How could this be? Appraiser Chow's eyes widened in disbelief. He quickly used some techniques to re-examine the pet beasts. This time, his face was even paler than before as he exclaimed, "This is bad." Appraiser Wang came over to examine the pet beasts as well. His expression wasn't any better than Appraiser Chow's, and even his hands were trembling. He really was poisoned by the 3-leaf antidote. How is this possible? According to pharmacology, the poison should be compatible with each other. How could he still be poisoned? And this poison has already entered his internal organs. Appraiser Wang mumbled to himself as cold sweat beaded on his face. The current situation was exactly as Lin Jin had described. Only by consuming the ice-toad blood dissolving pill could the poison be neutralized. Appraiser Chow was still in disbelief and wanted to examine the pet beasts again. Although Appraiser Wang was short-tempered, he knew that this situation couldn't be delayed any longer. Every second was crucial, so he made a prompt decision. Get the ice-toad blood dissolving pill now. Hurry. An apprentice beside him immediately ran off to retrieve the pill. Chapter 365. Ice-toad blood dissolving pills were more precious, so they didn't carry them with them. They could only head to the pharmacy to retrieve them, hoping that they could make it in time. We can't just wait here. Appraiser Wang knew that this round trip would take some time. The severity of the poisoning among these pet beasts varied, and the more severe ones couldn't be delayed any longer. He immediately took out a set of silver needles. As a beast appraiser, needles were a necessity, so he had to carry them with him at all times. Appraiser Wang's set of needles had obviously been in use for a long time, as the outer layer of the leather sheath was already glowing from the wear. Appraiser Chow understood that the two of them had confirmed that the beasts were poisoned by the 3-leaf antidote. Although he couldn't understand or even believe it, the truth was the truth. After some thought, he said, even if we consume the ice-toad blood-dissolving pill now, it won't be able to completely detoxify the poison. We'll need to use acupuncture to suppress the poison. Appraiser Wang, let me help too. Appraiser Chow took out his needles, but felt helpless. There were 5 poisoned pet beasts, and both he and Appraiser Wang couldn't cure them. Moreover, it was late at night, so even if they went to look for other beast appraisers, they wouldn't be able to make it in time. Appraiser Chow turned to Lin Jin and Ouyang Tong. Lin Jin knew what they were thinking, but he didn't harbor any grudges, nor was he in the mood to watch them make a fool of themselves. Without waiting for Appraiser Chow to speak, Lin Jin stepped forward and said, I'll help. I'll help too. Ouyang Tong followed closely behind him. All right then, thank you. Appraiser Chow's imposing manner had weakened. He understood that Lin Jin was probably right about what he said earlier, and that he wasn't trying to cause trouble. However, now wasn't the time to talk about this. It was still rather taxing for the 4 of them to deal with 5 pet beasts. After all, acupuncture required one to be fully focused without the slightest distraction. If that doesn't work, I could take care of 2 beasts on my own. Just as Appraiser Chow finished speaking, Lin Jin had already raised his hands and inserted needles into several acupoints on the pet beast bodies. Lin Jin's speed and accuracy were unprecedented. Appraiser Chow had been immersed in the art of acupuncture for many years, so he could tell at a glance how good Lin Jin's technique was. His eyes lit up when he saw Lin Jin's technique. Amazing. The acupoint piercing technique was nothing more than 3 words: speed, accuracy, and stability. Meanwhile, Lin Jin was performing acupuncture on 2 pet beasts at the same time. Yet, he didn't make a single mistake, nor did he hesitate. Based on this, Lin Jin knew that Lin Jin was at least better at acupuncture than he was. Now that Lin Jin had volunteered to perform acupuncture on both pet beasts, their biggest problem was solved. Appraiser Chow immediately performed acupuncture on one of the pet beasts while Ouyang Tong did the same. For a moment, the scene was dead silent. Chairman Liu and the rest had watched from the beginning to the end. They had already figured out what was going on. It turned out that the 2 beast appraisers had made a mistake. This was the crux of the matter, so although they were annoyed, they dared not disturb them. Lin Jin could stab 2 beasts with ease. Forget 2 beasts. Even if all 5 beasts attacked at once, his pulse-seeking and pulse-seeking technique could deal with them. However, sometimes it was better not to be too obvious. Otherwise, it would be a slap in the face. Of course, Lin Jin was also paying close attention to the other 3 appraisers. If they couldn't handle it, Lin Jin would lend them a hand. Speaking of which, Lin Jin had several ways to neutralize the poison from the 3-leaf antidote. The ice-toad blood-dissolving pill wasn't necessary. Just the pulse-seeking technique was enough to neutralize the poison. And that was what Lin Jin was doing now. Invoking a spell, several needles were inserted into the 2 pet beasts' bodies. Both pet beasts were of decent quality and were worth a fortune to the average person. They also had great potential, so it was no wonder their master was so concerned about them. As Lin Jin performed his acupuncture technique, Ouyang Tong and Appraiser Chow witnessed it. Ouyang Tong was only a rank 1 beast appraiser after all, so his knowledge was lacking. He couldn't understand why Appraiser Lin's pet beasts had lost their needles. As a rank 2 beast appraiser, Appraiser Chow was experienced and knowledgeable. When he saw Lin Jin's technique, his heart skipped a beat, and he mumbled to himself, This is internal acupuncture. The art of acupuncture was divided into external acupuncture method and internal acupuncture method. The difficulty of these 2 acupuncture methods was naturally different. It could even be said that the difference was like heaven and earth. Many people knew how to use external acupuncture method, but internal acupuncture method was different. Anyway, Appraiser Chow had only read about it in books. There was no appraiser in the royal capital who knew how to perform internal acupuncture. Hence, when Appraiser Chow saw that Lin Jin was probably performing the legendary internal acupuncture technique, he was instantly stunned. He took a deep breath and the expression in his eyes changed. Eventually, he came to a realization. It's no wonder His Majesty allowed Appraiser Lin to get promoted to rank 3. Appraiser Chow smiled and stopped looking at Lin Jin's pet beasts. Instead, he focused on his acupuncture. With acupuncture to seal off the poison and slow down the flow of the poison, Lin Jin managed to buy himself some precious time. Someone brought the ice-toad blood-dissolving pills over and fed them to the other 3 pet beasts. When it was time to give the pills to Lin Jin's pet beasts, Lin Jin thought for a moment and waved his hand. These 2 don't need it. Why? The apprentice was puzzled. Appraiser Chow, on the other hand, was no longer belittling Lin Jin like before. He glanced at the 2 pet beasts being treated by Lin Jin and saw that they were no longer poisoned. It seemed like the poison had been removed. Not only was the poison gone, but their conditions had also improved. No matter how reluctant he had nothing to say now. Facts spoke louder than words. Putting aside whether Lin Jin was qualified to get promoted to rank 3, at the very least, Lin Jin's methods were much more brilliant than his and Appraiser Wang's. There was no doubt about that. Appraiser Wang noticed this as well, but he wasn't as indecisive as Appraiser Chow. Instead, he hurried over to check on the pet beasts. At this, Appraiser Wang's expression changed. He got up and bowed at Lin Jin. Appraiser Lin, I apologize for my stupidity earlier. Please accept my apologies for offending you. Lin Jin quickly stopped him, but Appraiser Wang was a stubborn man, so he forced himself to bow. With Appraiser Wang behaving like this, Appraiser Chow knew there was no need to put on airs anymore. To put it bluntly, Lin Jin had done them a great favor. If he hadn't said anything, Even if these 5 pet beasts weren't in trouble, there was a high chance that 1 or 2 of them would have died. If that happened, their reputations would be ruined and the entire royal capital would be implicated as well. Hence, strictly speaking, they were indebted to Lin Jin. As for Lin Jin's skills, it was obvious from how easily he managed to save the 2 dying pet beasts. More importantly, he didn't even use any ammunition. Instead, he just relied on his acupuncture skills to do it. Both Appraiser Wang and Appraiser Chow couldn't tell. It could only be said that their levels were too low. All the dissatisfaction he had felt earlier vanished. With Appraiser Wang taking the lead, Appraiser Chow naturally stepped forward to apologize as well. Lin Jin didn't hold it against them. He saluted the 2 appraisers and said, "Appraisers, Lin Jin was just being straightforward. I hope you won't take it to heart." With just a few words, the matter was over. "Appraiser Lin, you must have an urgent matter to attend to in the middle of the night, right?" Appraiser Chow suddenly asked. Since their relationship had been mended, they were curious, so they asked. Lin Jin didn't hide anything this time and told them about his encounter with the Demonic Appraisal Association in Reed City. The Demonic Appraisal Association probably won't let this matter rest, so I was worried. That's why I came here in the middle of the night to check on the association's files. I see. Appraiser Wang and Appraiser Chow exchanged a glance. They obviously knew about the Demonic Appraisal Association. It was a malignant tumor in the beast appraiser community. Any beast appraiser on the right path would hate them to the core. Appraiser Lin, feel free to take a look. There are indeed quite a number of dossiers here at headquarters. Let's settle these pet beasts down first. If you're not in a hurry to leave later, we'll treat you to a drink. Appraiser Wang was a straightforward person. Previously, he had been unconvinced and nitpicking at Lin Jin, but now he was convinced and sincere. Chapter 366. Lin Jin thanked Wang and Chow while Ouyang Tong enthusiastically ushered Lin Jin inside. Appraiser Lin, you must be tired after coming all the way to headquarters. I've ordered someone to prepare some chicken soup for Appraiser Lin to perk up. Just like his name, Ouyang Tong was an intelligent and smooth talker. He wasn't doing well at headquarters due to certain reasons, but that didn't mean he was clueless about the ways of the world. When it came to cozying up to someone, Ouyang Tong was quite experienced. He knew that Lin Jin must be in a hurry to rush here, so he didn't advise him to rest. This was to Lin Jin's liking. Come to think of it, it had been some time since Lin Jin last ate. Since noon, he hadn't had anything decent to eat. Now that he thought about it, he was really starving. Then I'll have to trouble you, Appraiser Ouyang. Lin Jin smiled. Overjoyed, Ouyang Tong immediately arranged for someone to carry out the task. Meanwhile, he brought Lin Jin to the place where the scrolls were kept. Ouyang Tong had already called for the manager of this place. The dossiers regarding the Demonic Appraisal Association were sorted out and placed on a desk. The scrolls were old and new, but there were quite a few of them. Lin Jin's interest was piqued at first glance. As the saying went, know thyself and know thy enemy, and you will never be defeated. These things were enough for him to read for a while. Lin Jin wasted no time. He sat down and began flipping through the files. Ouyang Tong didn't leave either. He stayed beside Lin Jin, holding a lamp in his hand to illuminate the room. Lin Jin tried several times to get Ouyang Tong to leave, but the man insisted on staying. Hence, Lin Jin didn't chase him away. Come to think of it, it was nice to have someone to light up the room. Soon, the chicken soup and some snacks were served. Lin Jin finished them in a few mouthfuls and continued reading. Just like that, the night passed. The scrolls at headquarters were truly comprehensive. After one night, Lin Jin gained a much better understanding of the Demonic Appraisal Association than before. The Demonic Appraisal Association came into existence a long time ago, almost at the same time as the Beast Appraisal Association. For a period of time, the Demonic Appraisal Association was so powerful that it could rival the Beast Appraisal Association. Rumor had it that the Demonic Appraisal Association once produced incredible experts who were on par with rank 4 beast appraisers. There was only one branch in the Jade Dragon Kingdom, but due to the Demonic Appraisal Association's secretive ways, No one was able to find its exact location despite knowing of its existence. The information in the dossier was extremely mysterious. The Demonic Appraisal Association was all about achieving their goals. They would stop at nothing and had no rules to speak of. From the very beginning, they went against the Beast Appraisal Association in every way they could. Many who joined the Demonic Appraisal Association were righteous beast appraisers who broke the rules. In other words, if they had no criminal records and weren't evil, the Demonic Appraisal Association would never accept them. It was indeed strange. There were many specific examples in the dossier. For example, a certain year, the Demonic Appraisal Association was active in a certain area, killing people and robbing beasts. There was also a case where a righteous beast appraiser was ambushed and died in a foreign land. In the end, it was found out that the Demonic Appraisal Association was the culprit. There were many similar cases. Lin Jean was more interested in one of the dossiers. It stated that traces of demonic appraisers were discovered in the royal capital during the 3rd month of last year. Some demonic appraisers were cultivating demonic beasts using the human cocoon technique, but they were discovered by 2 rank 3 beast appraisers, Yang Qingshi and Tan Sun. After a fierce battle for 2 days, they finally captured the mastermind and imprisoned him in the city's dungeon. This dossier was relatively new, so it should have been written last year. That was all. What happened after that wasn't mentioned. Lin Jean was curious about this. Thus, he turned to Ouyang Tong and asked if he knew anything about this. Ouyang Tong wasn't as energetic as Lin Jean. He was exhausted, but he forced himself to say, "Appraiser Lin, I do know about this. It happened last year, and it caused quite a commotion back then. The daughter of a wealthy family in the royal capital suddenly fell into a coma with a high fever that wouldn't subside. What's even stranger was that her pet beast mysteriously disappeared when the daughter fell sick. That family sought a doctor for help, and after that, they came to our Beast Appraisal Association. Ouyang Tong had always been curious about strange news like this. Hence, Lin Jean made sure that he knew everything about the case. Now that he was recounting it, it made sense. Back then, headquarters didn't think much of it and sent a rank 1 beast appraiser over. However, that beast appraiser ended up jumping into the royal capital's river that very night and died an unexplainable death. Because of this, headquarters paid extra attention to this case. Appraiser Tan Sun and appraiser Yang Qingshi personally went over and discovered some clues. Only then did they realize that a demonic appraiser was behind this. However, that demonic appraiser was no match for the 2 rank 3 beast appraisers and surrendered. Ouyang Tong tried his best to explain in a roundabout manner, interspersing the horrifying scene of the daughter's death. He said that the daughter had been infected with an insect egg, and it was a critical situation. If the 2 rank 3 beast appraisers hadn't arrived in time, a demonic beast might have hatched from the egg. The rank 1 beast appraiser who jumped into the river was also found to have a demonic creature inside his body. Lin Jean listened attentively. When Ouyang Tong was done, Lin Jean asked, "There's something that wasn't written in the file, and you didn't mention. I'd like to ask, where did that young lady's missing pet beast go?" Ouyang Tong nodded. Ouyang Tong was stunned. He really didn't know about this. But the problem was, this wasn't the main issue. To him, the main issue was the demonic appraiser's terrifying methods and the disgusting humanoid chrysalis demonic beast. As for the rich lady's pet beast, who cared about that? However, Ouyang Tong didn't dare to say this out loud. He had one good thing about him. He could spout nonsense to his subordinates, but to his superiors, he had to say whatever was on his mind. If he knew, he knew. If he didn't know, he didn't know. I don't know. That's right. It wasn't written in the file either. Lin Jean mumbled to himself. Lin Jean mumbled to himself. Then he asked another question that piqued his interest. What happened to the demonic appraiser we captured? Ouyang Tong knew the answer to this question. He's still locked up in the dark cell. Why isn't he executed? Well, I don't know about that. Ouyang Tong shrugged. Lin Ji knew that was all Ouyang Tong knew. It was already daybreak outside when footsteps could be heard. Then, an elderly man pushed open the door and entered. Seeing this, Lin Jean quickly got up to welcome him. It was none other than appraiser Tan's son. As one of the few rank 3 beast appraisers at headquarters, appraiser Tan's son enjoyed a high status here. Upon arriving early in the morning, he heard about what happened last night, so he came to look for Lin Jean. Appraiser Lin, I heard that you came here late at night to look through the Demonic Appraisal Association's files. Did something happen? Tan's son knew Lin Jean well. Something big must have happened for Lin Jean to come here so late at night. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a hurry. Since Lin Jean and Tan's son were old acquaintances, Lin Jean immediately told him about what happened in Reed City. Since he was talking to Tan's son, Lin Jean didn't hide the fact that he annihilated the Demonic Appraisal Association's branch. Tan's son was stunned for a moment before he exclaimed, "Appraiser Lin, you're saying that you annihilated the Demonic Appraisal Association's branch in Jade Dragon territory?" Lin Jean nodded. There was nothing to hide. That's why I came to headquarters to look through the files. I want to learn more about this Demonic Appraisal Association, Lin Jean said. Chapter 367. Tan Sun said sternly, "The Demonic Appraisal Association has always been unpredictable. In the past, we only found out about it after something happened. It was a coincidence that you were able to find out about it in advance. Eliminating that group of evildoers is a great deed. However, the Demonic Appraisal Association is a large organization, and I'm worried that they'll come after you." Tan Sun laughed. "Don't worry, Appraiser Tan. Since Lin Jean was able to eliminate their branch, if they come after me for revenge, I'll eliminate them as well." Lin Jean said this confidently. Tan Sun seemed to have recalled something and came to a sudden realization. You're right. But no matter how capable you are, don't forget that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. You're a beast appraiser of our association, so if you're up against the demonic appraisers, we should be working together. We won't let you face this alone." He patted Lin Jean on the shoulder. Next, Lin Jean asked about the demonic appraiser incident in the royal capital last year. Tan Sun was one of the main witnesses. Back then, he and another rank 3 beast appraiser worked together to capture the demonic appraiser alive. It's exactly as described in the file. Tan Sun nodded. Since it happened last year, the memory was still fresh in his mind. Tan Sun explained in more detail than Ouyang Tong. It was a simple word to describe how evil that demonic appraiser was. That rich lady who was turned into a human cocoon still hasn't woken up. Although the parasite in her has been removed, she still won't wake up. She might be stuck in this state for the rest of her life, Tan Sun said with a guilty expression. Perhaps he felt that there was nothing he could do in this matter. Lin Jean nodded. Then, he asked about something else he was concerned about. Was a lady's pet beast found because it wasn't mentioned in the file? Stunned, Tan Sun pondered for a moment before shaking his head. No. Back then, I assumed that the demonic appraiser had killed the lady's pet beast. Did he confess? Lin Jean asked. Tan Sun shook his head. No. That demonic appraiser didn't say a word after he was captured. He was supposed to be beheaded, but he confessed that he found a treasure trove belonging to the demonic appraiser and found several tens of thousands of silver taels in exchange for a year's delay of death. Now that I think about it, it's about time for the execution. After all, Tan Sun was not a government official. He had only heard the news from others. But there's no need to worry. That demonic appraiser's pet beast has been killed, and this man's spirit meridian has been destroyed. He's now a helpless cripple. Now that he's locked up in the dark dungeon, even if he's still alive, I'm afraid he's living a life worse than death, Tan Sun added. Lin Jean nodded. After giving it some thought, he decided not to probe further. After that, the two of them chatted as they walked with Ouyang Tong trailing behind them. The latter was acting cautiously as he didn't expect appraiser Lin Jean to be so close to appraiser Tan Sun. This was a good thing. To him, appraiser Tan Sun was one of the higher-ups at headquarters. Usually, you wouldn't even be able to curry favor with him. Now that he had a chance to get closer to appraiser Tan, Ouyang Tong wouldn't let it go. Therefore, he followed behind and did not move. Lin Jean noticed Ouyang Tong and said, "Appraiser Ouyang, I've troubled you for an entire night. If you're tired, you should get some rest." "No, I'm not tired at all." Ouyang Tong quickly waved his hand. Only then did Tan Sun notice Ouyang Tong. After staring at him for a long time, he finally remembered that he was a rank 1 beast appraiser at headquarters. Tan Sun couldn't be blamed for his poor memory. There were many rank 1 beast appraisers at headquarters, at least 60 of them. Some of them were rarely seen and their names were never heard of, so it was normal for him to forget them. You were the beast appraiser on duty last night, right? Tan Sun suddenly asked. Ouyang Tong hurried forward. Yes, I was on duty last night. Then get some rest. Don't tire yourself out. Tan Sun took good care of his subordinates. He wasn't a fan of cliques, and to him, all beast appraisers were the same. Ouyang Tong was reluctant, but since Tan Sun had spoken, he dared not disobey. He nodded and prepared to leave. Truth be told, how could Lin Jin not see through Ouyang Tong's intentions? Speaking of which, Lin Jin had a good impression of this fatty, so he would help him if he could. Appraiser Tan Sun, appraiser Ouyang has helped me a lot last night. It was a tough night for him. Just this one sentence made Ouyang Tong feel emotional and grateful. Everything else aside, appraiser Lin Jin's words would definitely make appraiser Tan Sun remember him. This was the greatest favor appraiser Tan Sun could ever ask for. Ouyang Tong knew his limits, so he was satisfied. After bowing, he hurried away without delay. Only Tan Sun and Lin Jin were left behind. The two chatted more freely and they talked about Tan Lin. Linner has arrived at the Heavenly Spiral Academy. Come to think of it, I wasn't worried about her when she was in Maple City, and I didn't really miss her. But now that she's been in the Heavenly Spiral Great Nation for a few days, I'm starting to think that maybe she's getting old, Tan Sun said emotionally. Lin Jin nodded. It's only human nature for appraiser Tan Sun to miss his daughter. After all, Maple City was within J-Dragon country, and the distance wasn't that great. Riding on an eagle beast, it would take less than half a day to get there. However, Spiral Nation is too far away. Even with an eagle beast, it would take several days to get there. I know, right? Tan Sun finally found someone to confide in. Oddly enough, he had never said this to anyone else before, but Lin Jin gave him a sense of closeness, so he couldn't help but speak more. Appraiser Tan Lin is a talented appraiser. With this trip to Heavenly Spiral Academy, she will surely improve even further. I hope that she can return soon. Lin Jin's words of praise made Tan Sun burst into laughter. Appraiser Lin, I was very surprised by your advancement to rank 3. Although I thought it was inappropriate, I didn't stop you. I know you're skilled, but the others at headquarters might not think the same. Since you're here, don't be in a hurry to go back. Stay for a few more days and help me host the Jade Dragon Festival celebration the day after tomorrow. Lin Jin was stunned by Tan Sun's sudden words. He obviously knew about the Jade Dragon Festival. It was a traditional festival of the Jade Dragon Kingdom that had been going on for over 100 years. Every household would celebrate it, and headquarters would have a special ceremony to celebrate it. During the opening ceremony, there would be many traditional activities to pray for blessings, and one of the most important would be the drawing of an evolution lot. The process was simple. One person would be picked from the crowd, and their pet beast would evolve. It was called blessing. This was a test of one's capabilities. Regardless of whether it was rank 1 to rank 2 or rank 2 to rank 3, it was a challenge for the beast appraiser. After all, no one knew the exact situation at the time. Hence, the ones in charge of this segment were all skilled beast appraisers. Lin Jin understood Tan Sun's sudden arrangement to help him clear his name. Coincidentally, Lin Jin was planning to settle a few matters in the royal capital, so he decided to stay for a few days. Lin Jin nodded in agreement to host the Jade Dragon Festival. Since appraiser Tan Sun was willing to help him, Lin Jin would naturally cooperate. Moreover, he wasn't afraid at all. He was confident. Chapter 368. Tan Sun was obviously trying to help Lin Jin, and Lin Jin knew that. He had come to the royal capital at the last minute and planned to return as soon as possible. But now, it seemed like he would have to stay for a few more days, at least until the Jade Dragon Festival ended. Lin Jin had to make arrangements at Maple City. He quickly wrote a letter and had the courier deliver it back to Maple City. There were two things he wanted to discuss in the letter. One was to leave Maple City's Beast Appraisal Association to Jia Qian and Zhao Ying for the time being. With the support of the elders, there shouldn't be any problems. The other matter was the Qiao family of Reed City. Although Lin Jin had left White Ape there to guard the place, he was alone. If the demonic appraisers sent more people, they wouldn't be able to win. Hence, Lin Jin instructed Shang'er to bring Goldie to the Qiao family of Reed City. He would leave the Shadow Wolf and Little Five at Maple City. While Shang'er and Goldie were the only ones going, their combined strength was almost on par with Lin Jin's. With White Ape in the mix, even if the Demonic Appraisal Association sent their rank 4 pet beasts, they wouldn't be able to do anything to them. This was the purpose of Lin Jin's letter. After sending the letter, Lin Jin planned to pay a visit to the royal capital's wealthy family to check on the unconscious young lady. Since the Jade Dragon Festival would be held the next day, Lin Jin was curious too. Since the event would be held the next day, Lin Jin could spend the next 2 days investigating this incident to kill time. Of course, this was what he announced to the public. In fact, Lin Jin was just too curious about this matter. He wanted to get to the bottom of it. Hence, not only did he plan to visit the young lady, but he also planned to visit the dark prison to check on the demonic appraiser who was about to be executed. His instincts told him that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed. However, Lin Jin had no idea where that wealthy family was. Other than Liu Bin and He Qing, he didn't know anyone else in the royal capital. Master Gu was from the royal capital, but he wasn't home. He was probably traveling the world with his sword. Liu Bin wasn't in the royal capital, and He Qing was a princess, so it wouldn't be easy for her to leave the palace. Why would she do that? Having lived in the palace all year round, He Qing was probably more familiar with the city than Lin Jin was. Looks like I'll have to trouble Appraiser Tan's son, Lin Jin mused. But after a glance, Appraiser Tan's son was clearly busy, so Lin Jin couldn't bring himself to ask. Just then, Lin Jin saw a plump figure standing outside. Ouyang Tong. This person hasn't gone to rest yet. Perhaps sensing Lin Jin's gaze, Ouyang Tong hurried forward and greeted him respectfully. Appraiser Lin, is there anything I can help you with? Ouyang Tong, grew up in the royal capital, so I'm very familiar with this place. Stunned, Lin Jin mused. This Ouyang Tong is a considerate person. When he asked about the demonic appraiser from last year, Ouyang Tong must have taken note of him. Knowing that he wanted to investigate, he didn't go back in and waited outside. Lin Jin knew what Ouyang Tong was up to. Right now, he really needed help from someone like Ouyang Tong, so he didn't reject the offer. Instead, he asked with a smile, Appraiser Ouyang, you haven't slept all night. Aren't you tired? Ouyang Tong's answer was straightforward. I'm used to it. I'm not tired. Lin Jin could tell that he wasn't lying. He was really used to it. In other words, Ouyang Tong was one of those marginalized people who were bullied by headquarters. It was no wonder he wouldn't let go of opportunities like this. Usually, Lin Jin wouldn't need someone like this. But now, he needed a helper. Hence, he nodded and let Ouyang Tong lead the way. Ouyang Tong was a smart man. He knew better than to ask questions that shouldn't be asked. Hence, he played the role of good guide. As for why Lin Jin wanted to investigate this matter, even if he was curious, he wouldn't ask. Lin Jin clearly had a good impression of Ouyang Tong. Now, he knew that Ouyang Tong was a useful person. As the royal capital gradually woke up in the morning, there were more people on the streets. Some stalls and shops opened their doors to welcome customers, while others poured clean water on streets. It was the start of a busy day. The wealthy families of the royal capital all lived on the eastern side of the city. The roads here were wider and cleaner. All the residences were large and majestic. Ouyang Tong walked up to one of the residences and said to Lin Jin, Appraiser Lin, this is the Du family. They have some businesses too. Many of the cloth shops in the royal capital are owned by them. They're considered a wealthy family in the royal capital. Lin Jin nodded. Just by looking at the entrance, he could tell that this family was wealthy. As the saying went, a wide gate meant that a regular family could only have one person pass through the door. For those who were slightly better off, 2 people could enter at the same time. However, the Du family's gate was about 10 feet wide. There was a guardian stone beast in front of the gate, and the road was paved with green bricks. The bricks were exquisite too. They were unique to Goose City and couldn't be found anywhere else. In other words, these bricks were specially imported from Goose City, which was 100 miles away. How could an average family have such wealth? Not to mention the wood used here. In short, just by looking at the gate, one could tell that this mansion was extravagant. A wealthy family like this must have the money to purchase powerful pet beasts or hire powerful guards. Lin Jin thought to himself. Ouyang Tong was already knocking on the door. It didn't take long for the door to open. A man dressed like a servant poked his head out and looked outside cautiously. Ouyang Tong was respectful in front of Lin Jin, but in front of outsiders, he behaved like a gentleman. He raised his voice and asked, "Is Du Lianheng here?" Seeing how arrogant the visitor was, the servant didn't dare to speak carelessly. "My master is at home. May I know who you two are?" As he spoke, he noticed Ouyang Tong's one-ring sleeve band. "We're from headquarters. This is Appraiser Lin. My name is Ouyang Tong, and I know your master. Hurry up and inform him." Ouyang Tong obviously didn't want to waste any more time with this servant. The servant quickly went to inform Lin Jin. Moments later, an elderly man dressed in extravagant clothing walked out and said with a smile, "I didn't know Appraiser Ouyang would be visiting so early in the morning. Please excuse me for not coming out to greet you." So they really did know each other. Ouyang Tong smiled. "Master, do come. Let me introduce you. This is Appraiser Lin, a rank 3 beast appraiser from headquarters. He's here to visit your daughter." Lin Jin walked over. Upon hearing that he was a rank 3 beast appraiser, Du Lianheng dared not be rude. He saluted Lin Jin, and Lin Jin returned the gesture. "Appraiser Yang came by 2 days ago. Did something happen?" Du Lianheng suddenly asked. "Appraiser Yang?" Lin Jin was confused, but Ouyang Tong was quick to respond. "Appraiser Lin has always been in Maple City, and he specializes in diagnosing difficult diseases. Although he's not a physician, his skills aren't any worse than Appraiser Yang's. He heard about your daughter's situation, so he came to visit out of sympathy." His explanation was flawless. Even Lin Jin nodded inwardly. Sure enough, having Ouyang Tong around was a good thing. If Lin Jin had come by himself, he wouldn't have been able to bring it up. Chapter 369. Although Du Lianheng came from a wealthy family, beast appraisers had a special status, so he was polite as he led Lin Jin and Ouyang Tong inside. Along the way, Lin Jin whispered to Appraiser Yang if he was Yang Qingshi, one of the rank 3 beast appraisers at headquarters. Ouyang Tong nodded. Ouyang Tong had mentioned that Appraiser Tan Sun and Yang Qingshi were the ones who participated in this incident. The Du Manor's compound was elegant and secluded. Just the main hall alone was spacious. The chairs were well chosen and the tea was excellent. The Du Manor's hospitality was certainly commendable. This was the nature of businessmen. They would make friends without offending anyone. This was especially true for beast appraisers. Even if they didn't welcome Lin Jin and Ouyang Tong's arrival, they wouldn't show it on their faces. That was how cunning and astute they were. Knowing that Lin Jin was here to visit his daughter, Du Lianheng said, "Appraiser Lin, Appraiser Ouyang, if you want to visit my poor daughter, please do so. Ever since that incident last year, she hasn't woken up. Sigh, what a tough life she has." At the mention of his daughter, Du Lianheng sighed, revealing his true feelings. Without delay, Lin Jin left at once. Du Lianheng personally led them to a quiet courtyard. This was his daughter's room. A maid had just come out with a basin of water. Upon seeing Du Lianheng, she hurriedly bowed. Ever since Lianxi fell into a coma, the servants have been washing her face, combing her hair, and turning her around. "She's my only daughter, so I hope she'll wake up soon," Du Lianheng said before gesturing for the maid to open the door. Then he led the way inside. Lin Jin followed closely behind. Ever since he stepped foot into the courtyard, he caught a faint scent. It didn't seem like a monster's aura, and it was hard to detect. At least, Ouyang Tong couldn't smell at all. The reason Lin Jin could smell it was because his cultivation had improved, and he had fused with Xiao Hua's Dharma body. His 5 senses were connected, so it was normal that he couldn't pick it up on anyone else. This scent was unusual, so Lin Jean immediately perked up. A woman's room was always neat and tidy, emitting a fragrant scent. However, the moment Lin Jean stepped inside, he frowned and stopped in his tracks. It wasn't that he was overreacting, but the sudden stench caught him off guard. However, the strange thing was that Du Lianheng, Ouyang Tong, and the servant girl didn't seem to smell anything and didn't have any other reaction. Lin Jean knew something was off, but now wasn't the time to ask, so he forced himself to hold back and observe for now. Inside the room, a young woman was lying on the bed. Looking at her age, she was at most 16 years old. However, she was motionless and covered with a silk quilt. Needless to say, this was Du Lianheng's daughter. After lying in bed for a year, Lin Jean assumed that the woman must have lost all of her features or become as thin as a stick. However, the woman on the bed looked as if she was asleep. Other than her pale complexion, there was nothing out of the ordinary. This was strange. Moreover, the strong stench was coming from Du Lianheng's daughter. Unable to resist, Lin Jean whispered to Ouyang Tong, "Appraiser Ouyang, do you smell anything?" At this, Ouyang Tong took a deep breath, smiled honestly, and whispered, "Appraiser Lin, it's normal for a woman's room to smell nice." "Smell my *SS." Lin Jean raised an eyebrow. Ouyang Tong didn't seem like he was lying to him. In other words, Ouyang Tong didn't smell anything at all. No, he only smelled a faint fragrance. Du Lianheng and the servant girl should be the same. So why did Lin Jean smell a stench? Being a knowledgeable man, Lin Jean decided to investigate this matter further so he wouldn't say anything. He didn't seal off his sense of smell, so despite the stench, he could still hold it in. He now knew that Du Lianheng's daughter was named Du Lianxi. She had been intelligent since she was young, and her pet beast was a steel-winged skylark. Lin Ji nodded. He did see a large birdcage in the room, but it was empty. It must have been used to store pet beasts. Ever since that incident, my daughter's pet beast has gone missing. It must have died in the hands of that evil man. Du Lianheng, have never done anything bad, so I don't know why he would punish me like this, causing my daughter to suffer like this. Du Lianheng looked at his daughter with a loving expression. Other than that, there was only sorrow. She had been in a coma for a year. It was almost impossible to save her. To be honest, appraisers, I've already made arrangements for my daughter's funeral, but I still hope for a miracle. I hope that one day, she will wake up and call me father again. Du Lianheng wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes as he spoke emotionally. Lin Jin comforted him before turning his attention back to Du Lianxi. Lin Jin couldn't tell anything from her expression. While no one was paying attention, Lin Jin flicked a silver needle and pierced it into Du Lianxi's clothes and bedding. Lin Jin's pupils dilated at once. Ouyang Tong had been observing Lin Jin's expression, so he was startled when he saw the change in Lin Jin's expression. Then, he noticed Lin Jin staring at Du Lianxi, so he knew the appraiser must have noticed something. After some thought, Ouyang Tong said to the servant girl, "I drank it. Give me some water." The servant girl was stunned. Du Lianheng quickly gestured for her to do so before she hurried away. Then, Ouyang Tong deliberately pulled Du Lianheng aside to talk to him with his back facing Lin Jin. At this, Lin Jin mused, "This Ouyang Tong really knows how to read people." However, Lin Jin didn't have to turn his back on Du Lianxi. One of his needles was more than enough. He now knew why Du Lianxi was unconscious and had a strange stench. The mystery that had been bothering Lin Jin was finally solved. Without retrieving his needle, Lin Jin thanked Du Lianheng and was about to leave. Perhaps because he had held onto a glimmer of hope for this young rank 3 beast appraiser. Du Lianheng was disappointed to see Lin Jin leaving so soon without any diagnosis. However, his businessman nature kept him in check, so he didn't show it. Lin Jin could tell how much Du Lianheng loved his daughter, so after some thought, he said, "Lord Du, you should spend more time with your daughter for the next 2 days. She seems to be getting better, so she might wake up in the next 2 days." Having said that, Lin Jin excused himself. Du Lianheng stood rooted to the ground. Outside, Lin Jin was walking briskly with Ouyang Tong following closely behind him. He looked puzzled. Appraiser Ouyang, I'd like to visit that demonic appraiser locked up in the dungeon. Do you have any connections? Lin Jin suddenly asked. Perhaps noticing Lin Jin's solemn expression, Ouyang Tong's expression turned serious. I do. This Ouyang Tong was a decent man. Then I'll have to trouble appraiser Ouyang to make the arrangements. I'll visit that person tonight, Lin Jin said. Ouyang Tong was puzzled. I thought appraiser Lin wanted to go now. If it was at night, it wouldn't be a problem at all. There are a few prison guards in the dark dungeon, and I'm familiar with them, so I can get it done with just a word. However, the dark dungeon is a little sinister. After all, it's used to detain prisoners on death row. Very few people go there during the day, so at night. Appraiser Ouyang, just make the arrangements. I know what I'm doing. All right, I'll make the arrangements. Chapter 370. The dark cell was what locals like Ouyang Tong and the others called the death row prison. As the place was built underground, it never saw the light of day and was eerily dark, hence the name. Lin Jin's investigation at the Doom Manor turned out to be fruitful. At this moment, Lin Jin was sitting at a food stall, drinking a soup made from ground beans and eating deep-fried pancakes as he pondered over something. Ouyang Tong had been sent away, and Lin Jin needed some time alone. At first, Lin Jin was just curious, so he wanted to investigate this matter before the Jade Dragon Festival. Who knew that he would actually find some clues after his investigation? First up was the Du family's young lady, Du Lianxi. Lin Jin now knew why she was unconscious. According to the dossier, a demonic cultivator was trying to refine Du Lianxi into a human cocoon, but appraiser Tan Sun and appraiser Yang Qingshi from headquarters discovered it. The two appraisers worked together to break the demonic appraiser's spell, defeat him, and lock him up in the dark cell. This was what Lin Jin knew. The human cocoon spell was a heretical technique. Lin Jin had heard of it before. It involved sealing a living person in a mud jar and tossing in an insect egg. Once the egg hatched, the person inside would be eaten clean, and the worm would eventually break out of the cocoon. Insects hatched from human cocoons were incredibly powerful. This book was popular several hundred years ago, but due to the suppression of the orthodox beast appraisers, it disappeared without a trace for a while. But occasionally, it would make a comeback, and this was one of them. Fortunately, appraiser Tan Sun and appraiser Yang Qingshi discovered in time and intervened to stop the demonic appraiser's plan. As for why Du Lianxi remained unconscious for so long, everyone assumed it was because of the human cocoon spell. But after Lin Jin's investigation, he realized that wasn't the case. This was also the reason why Lin Jin was deep in thought. One was the stench in the room. From what Lin Jin could tell, someone had purposely covered it up with a spell. Although the culprit was skilled enough to fool others, it was a pity that an expert like Lin Jin was able to easily expose him. The other one was Du Lianxi. Using his needles, Lin Jin could clearly tell that she was still under the influence of the human cocoon spell. However, instead of being sealed in a mud jar, there was something else inside. Hidden inside Du Lianxi's organs was her missing pet beast, the steel-feathered skylark. That was why Lin Jin was so shocked when he learned about this through acupuncture. Otherwise, someone as shrewd as Lin Jin wouldn't have lost his composure like that, even if he wasn't too shocked. Then, this is interesting. Who did this? From the looks of it now, it must be that demonic appraiser. He might have pretended to be weak and allowed himself to be captured, but in reality, he was plotting a bigger scheme. But if that was the case, there was another problem that was hard to explain. Why didn't anyone see it? After all, this was the Royal City, the headquarters of Jade Dragon Kingdom's Beast Appraisal Association. There were at least 5 rank 3 beast appraisers in the headquarters. Did none of them notice anything amiss? Lin Jin would never underestimate anyone in this world. With the Museum of Deadly Beasts, he indeed had a unique advantage. However, the other rank 3 beast appraisers were no slouches either. It was understandable that Ouyang Tong couldn't tell, but Lin Jin refused to believe that a rank 3 beast appraiser couldn't, unless someone was purposely trying to cover it up. Even Lin Jin didn't expect his curiosity to lead him to uncover such a huge secret. He never expected this to happen. Lin Jin had asked Ouyang Tong earlier. Ever since this incident, appraiser Yang Qingshi had been keeping an eye on the Du family. Appraiser Tan Sun, on the other hand, didn't pay much attention due to his busy schedule. Lin Jin tore off a piece of the deep-fried pancake in his hand and soaked it in his soy milk. As he ate, he said, "You can't blame me for thinking too much. Unless you, Yang Qingshi, are lacking in skills, how could you not notice anything after visiting the Du family so many times? Unless you're involved in this as well." Sigh, this is so annoying. Lin Jin was indeed troubled. He had no intention of getting involved in this matter, but he had no choice. Now that he knew about it, he couldn't just pretend he didn't know. Moreover, Lin Jin was sure that his visit to the Du family wouldn't be kept a secret. If he was the one who came up with these schemes, he would surely be terrified. He might even be thinking of silencing Lin Jin. "I really have nothing better to do, so I brought trouble upon myself." Lin Jin sighed and ate the deep-fried pancake with his soy milk. Although this stall wasn't huge, it tasted authentic. After finishing his meal and paying the bill, Lin Jin strolled back to headquarters. He had thought things through. Whether it was as he predicted or not, since he was already involved, he would just have to take it one step at a time. There was nothing to be afraid of. Moreover, if someone from headquarters was behaving improperly on the surface but was actually up to no good, Lin Jin would have to do something about it. Moreover, this wasn't just improperly done. It was a crime against reason and nature itself. Others might not know, but Lin Jin had used his needles to investigate. The lark in Du Lianxi's stomach was the actual incubator for the insect. The person who cast this spell was so skillful that even an experienced beast appraiser wouldn't be able to tell what was going on, much less an average person. However, Lin Jin already knew what the culprit was up to. This insect was called an 8-headed viper. Not even a knowledgeable beast appraiser would have heard of it. Lin Jin only knew about it because of the Museum of Deadly Beasts. Otherwise, he wouldn't have heard of it. Based on the museum's information, this 8-headed viper was extremely domineering. It wasn't tolerated by nature, so it was difficult for it to be born. But once it was born, it would start off as a rank 4. That was terrifying. If it started off as a rank 4 and was the most powerful among rank 4 creatures, it was highly possible for it to advance to rank 5 in the future. It was no wonder people would choose to take the risk. Of course, when this 8-headed viper was born, the young lady of the Du family would surely die. Also, according to the Museum of Deadly Beasts, the 8-headed viper had a strange stench. That was why Lin Jin smelled it when he visited Du Lianxi's room. As for why no one else could smell it, Lin Jin knew that it wasn't because someone had done something to Du Lianxi's body. If that was the case, Lin Jin would have been able to tell from the needle poking earlier. As for how the culprit was able to prevent others from smelling the stench, Lin Jin honestly couldn't figure it out. But one thing was for sure, it had to be an ingenious method. The needle he left in Du Lianxi's body was Lin Jin's trump card. If needed, Lin Jin could activate the needle to destroy the 8-headed viper in Du Lianxi's body. However, this matter could not be used until the very last moment. Once the 8-headed viper was killed, it would immediately release an extremely terrifying corpse poison. Even if the great firmament immortal came, Du Lianxi would undoubtedly die. After all, she was an innocent girl. If he could save her, he would. Lin Jin had his reasons for planning to visit the dark prison at night. After all, he would most likely have to resort to violence. There were fewer people at night, so he wouldn't have to worry too much if he were to make a move. Lin Jin had considered everything he could think of. Chapter 371. Lin Jin was now sitting by a pond in headquarters' backyard. While he looked like he was enjoying the scenery, he was actually fiddling with something in his hand. The water reservoir armor. This item was a treasure. The water spirit energy it contained was incredibly dense. At his current stage, not only could it enhance Lin Jin's cloud mist, but he could also absorb water spirit energy from it to nourish his body when he held it in his hand during cultivation. Also, if he were to get injured, he could use this item to quickly recover. Of course, the water reservoir armor's value wasn't limited to this. However, at Lin Jin's current level, he couldn't unleash its full potential. Come to think of it, the demonic appraiser's branches around Reed City were really down on their luck. This treasure was right under their feet, but they didn't even notice it after so many years. If they knew, they would probably die from anger. Before he knew it, it was already noon. Lin Jin wasn't hungry. This place was quiet, and with the water reservoir armor's nourishment, Lin Jin was quite comfortable. After who knew how much time had passed, when he looked up, the sun was already setting. Lin Jin then realized he had been sitting here for half a day. It's about time. Lin Jin got up and put away the water reservoir armor. The thin layer of mist around him slowly dissipated. He had arranged to meet Ouyang Tong at auspicious residence. It was a restaurant, so they could have a meal together. Ouyang Tong had obviously arrived long ago. When he saw Lin Jin, he hurried over. "Appraiser Lin, everything is ready. We'll meet up after dark. We'll be heading to the dark cell." Lin Jin nodded. He didn't ask about anything else, but the demonic appraiser was on death row and was about to be executed. Under normal circumstances, outsiders shouldn't even think about meeting him. Yet, Ouyang Tong managed to arrange for it. Of course, with Lin Jin's skills, he could even sneak in secretly. But that wasn't what he wanted. What Lin Jin wanted was for Ouyang Tong to make the arrangements so that he could alert the enemy. Sure enough, Ouyang Tong ordered a table full of food at auspicious residence. There weren't many dishes, but each one was exquisite. He had obviously put a lot of effort into it. Lin Jin could tell that Ouyang Tong was trying to curry favor with him. Speaking of which, Ouyang Tong had helped him a lot, so Lin Jin felt a little guilty. "I'm quite close to Appraiser Tan's son. The next time I see him, I'll put in a good word for you," Lin Jin said without hesitation. At this, Ouyang Tong was elated and immediately toasted Lin Jin. "Appraiser Lin, try this. This is Auspicious Prosperity Residence's famous apricot wine. It's rich and mellow." Lin Jin turned to Ouyang Tong's pet beast. Ouyang Tong was nothing out of the ordinary, and so was his pet beast, a hardened boar. Back at headquarters, Ouyang Tong didn't bring his pet beast along. He would only bring it out in private. As for why, it was simple. He didn't want to embarrass himself. In his early years, Ouyang Tong was born poor. This armored wild boar was caught by his father to form a blood contract with him. Later on, when Ouyang Tong passed the apprenticeship exam, his father contracted an illness and passed away. Even after Ouyang Tong became an official rank 1 beast appraiser, he didn't give up on this pet beast. In his words, this was the only thing his father had left for him. Hence, even when it was determined that it couldn't evolve, Ouyang Tong never thought of giving up. However, because of this wild boar, he was often the butt of jokes. Hence, Ouyang Tong didn't bring his pet beast with him most of the time at headquarters to prevent others from gossiping. "Let me take a look at your pet beast." Although he was talking to Ouyang Tong, he was looking at the wild boar. The wild boar was currently eating something not too far away. Right after Lin Jin said that, he waved his hand. As if sensing his presence, the wild boar lifted its head, got up, and walked over. Ouyang Tong was surprised. But when he remembered that Appraiser Lin was a rank 3, his beast taming skills must be much better than Ouyang Tong's, so he wasn't surprised. Of course, Ouyang Tong didn't think too much about it. As a rank 1 beast appraiser himself, he had long studied his pet beast thoroughly. To be sure, his pet beast was what people often referred to as a low-grade beast. It couldn't even be considered a common beast. It had no potential and no unique bloodline. It was just an average hardened wild boar. All these years, he had thought of ways to help his pet beast evolve, but all his attempts had failed without exception. Because of this, he was mocked by others. Some even advised him to change pet beasts. Any pet beast would be better than this hardened wild boar. After all, it was common knowledge that low-grade beasts couldn't evolve. Ouyang Tong was well aware of this. He had thought of changing pet beasts, but as someone who was willing to lower his head and curry favor with others, Ouyang Tong refused to do so. As he said, this wild boar was left to him by his father. Keeping it alive was a form of filial piety. To be honest, Appraiser Lin, I've thought of changing pet beasts too. But when I thought about how it's been with me for so many years and how it's only survived until now because of the blood contract, if I were to break it, it would die immediately. So I didn't do it. Ouyang Tong's smile seemed to contain a sense of clarity. He had indeed come to terms with this matter. Having said that, he drank a glass of wine. However, just as he put down the glass, he heard a strange sound. It sounded like sand being ground. He turned around, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. A dense cloud of iron sand was emerging from his pet beast's body. Like a swarm of bees surrounding a nest, they circled around the wild boar before quickly converging to form something that looked like iron armor on the boar's forehead, front legs, and back. Almost at the same time, Ouyang Tong felt a surge of energy flowing into him through the power of their blood contract. This feeling was both foreign and familiar at the same time. It was foreign because he had never experienced it himself. It was familiar because, as a rank 1 beast appraiser, he had seen this attribute fluctuation far too many times. This was clearly an advancement. His pet beast had evolved. Ouyang Tong found this to be too surreal and unbelievable. The problem was, even if it was an evolution, it shouldn't be this fast. And how could a low-grade beast evolve? Lin Jin had already patted the wild boar's head. Then, he sat up straight, picked up his chopsticks, and continued eating. Stunned, Ouyang Tong rubbed his eyes forcefully and hurried over to check on his pet beast. Without a doubt, it was rank 2. Ouyang Tong used several methods to appraise it, and the results were unquestionable. His wild boar had evolved. Moreover, it was probably of the metal attribute. This could be seen from the iron armor on its body. The wild boar now looked much more intimidating than before. Its dark, reflective iron armor was like an Imperial Guard's armor. Just by looking at it, it exuded a murderous aura. One look was enough to tell that it wasn't someone to be trifled with. Aside from that, its flabby muscles looked incredibly sturdy. It was as if it had suddenly become 10 years younger. Even if Ouyang Tong were to continue eating, he would still be able to react. He took a step forward and bowed deeply at Lin Jin. There was no attempt at flattery or slyness in this bow. It was a show of respect. Lin Jin didn't stop him because he was worthy of such a bow. To put it bluntly, even a rank 4 beast appraiser might be able to promote a rank 3 pet beast to rank 4, but they definitely wouldn't be able to promote a low-grade beast from rank 1 to rank 2. Chapter 372. Other than gratitude, Ouyang Tong was also shocked. He knew very well how difficult it was for an inferior beast to evolve. After all, he was an official beast appraiser. Yet, appraiser Lin managed to evolve an inferior beast that couldn't possibly evolve with just a wave of his hand. This was even more shocking than seeing a rank 3 beast evolve to rank 4. From this moment onward, Lin Jin's status in Ouyang Tong's heart rose to a new height. That bunch of idiots doubted appraiser Lin's rank 3 qualification. Now, it seems like they were fools. With appraiser Lin's capabilities, he's not just at rank 3. In my opinion, even a rank 4 evaluation is well-deserved. Ouyang Tong thought to himself. The wild boar's evolution was significant to Ouyang Tong. Now, he was extremely respectful toward Lin Jin and had made up his mind to follow the man no matter what. Not only was he repaying Lin Jin's kindness, but he was also making plans for his future. The smart Ouyang Tong noticed that Lin Jin didn't say a word and only focused on tasting the food. He knew that appraiser Lin didn't want to discuss this matter, so Ouyang Tong didn't say another word. After bowing, he got up and poured Lin Jin a cup. After 2 hours of drinking, it was already late at night. It's about time. Lin Jin put down his cup. It was a delicious meal. After the meal, it was time to get down to business. Seeing Lin Jin get up, Ouyang Tong stood up as well, rubbing his palms together in anticipation. Lin Jin was stunned. Appraiser Ouyang, what are you doing? Ouyang Tong quickly said, Appraiser Lin, I'm going to help. Something must be up for you to go to the dark prison so late at night. I may not be very capable, but if something happens, I won't hesitate, even if it means risking my life. These were Ouyang Tong's heartfelt words. Lin Jin shook his head and gazed at the starry sky. The moon is beautiful tonight. Why don't you stay here and enjoy the view, Appraiser Ouyang? Ouyang Tong understood now. Lin Jin not letting him go meant that tonight's visit to the dark prison was no small matter. When Ouyang Tong went to the Du Manor today, he noticed that something was off. The reason was simple. When he went to the dark cell to look for a prison guard he was familiar with, he saw appraiser Yang Qingshi there. Later, when he asked the prison guard he was familiar with, he confirmed this as well. Back then, Ouyang Tong asked a few more questions and found out that appraiser Yang Qingshi often visited the demonic appraiser in the dungeon. Ouyang Tong had always been hesitant about whether or not he should speak of this matter. However, at this moment, he did not hesitate and immediately spoke of this matter. Appraiser Lin, there's something strange going on. I'll go with you. At least I can look after you, Ouyang Tong said. After Ouyang Tong said that, he noticed Lin Jin glancing at him. Lin Jin's gaze seemed to imply that there was no room for doubt. Stunned, Ouyang Tong lowered his head and said nothing more. Ouyang Tong's offer of help was sincere. Just then, he remembered something. Just as he was about to raise his head, he was stunned. Appraiser Lin was nowhere to be seen. Ouyang Tong was dumbfounded. This person was clearly in front of him just a moment ago. How did he disappear in the blink of an eye? Ouyang Tong glanced at the wild boar. The latter was whimpering, probably confused. Then Ouyang Tong ran to the window and looked out. He could vaguely see a cloud descending toward the dark cell. Ouyang Tong was dumbfounded for a long time. Lin Jin wasn't trying to show off. Just now, he suddenly felt the needle in Du Lianxi's body move. Someone must have noticed the needle and was trying to force it out. Hence, Lin Jin dashed out and used cloud travel. However, he didn't go to the Du Manor. Instead, he headed straight for the dark cell. This was a battle of skills and tactics. The other party wanted to force the needle out of Du Lianxi's body, but Lin Jin was confident that the other party wouldn't be able to do it. Hence, there was no need for him to go to the Du Manor. Instead, he decided to head to the dark cell. He wanted to meet that demonic appraiser to see if things were as he predicted. Was the demonic appraiser scheming in the dungeon? Or was the demonic appraiser just a cover? Someone was using his name to plot against him. Since Lin Jin was already involved, he might as well get to the bottom of this. Ouyang Tong mentioned that once he arrived at the dark cell, he only needed to tell the guards to look for Warden Zhang. Lin Jin descended from the cloud and saw a guard with a lantern in front of the dark cell. It was still early in the night, so the guard wasn't tired, but he looked a little lethargic. That was normal. Anyone would be bored if they had to guard this job all day long. Lin Jin stepped forward, and the guard was immediately alerted. He said, "This is the city's prison. It's a restricted area for the government. Halt!" Coupled with a long saber hanging from his waist and a black hellhound walking out from behind him, most people wouldn't have the guts to barge in recklessly. Lin Jin saluted, revealing his three-ring sleeve, and said, "I'm looking for Warden Zhang." The guard clearly knew what Lin Jin meant, so his attitude softened. However, he still scanned Lin Jin from head to toe before saying, "He's inside, in the house to the left of the yard." Lin Jin thanked the guard and stepped forward. When he passed by the black hellhound, he flashed the creature a smile, and the latter immediately lowered its tail in fear, whimpering in fear. The guard had never seen such a situation before. It had to be known that the black Cerberus was a special breed. Although its rank was not high, it was definitely the kind of beast that dared to fight against beasts that were much stronger than it. Even if it knew that it was no match for its opponent, the black Cerberus would not fear death. This kind of beast did not know what fear and retreat were. But at this moment, this black hellhound was actually scared to this extent. Leaving the confused guard behind, Lin Jin strode into the yard. Unlike other mansions, the walls here were tall, thick wooden doors, and iron windows. There were also many black hellhounds patrolling the yard. When Lin Jin entered, the black hellhounds turned to look at him. In the darkness, only their glowing eyes could be seen. Lin Jin knocked on the door of the house on the left, and an old warden came out. His uniform was a little tattered. "Warden Zhang." The old warden nodded. "Ouyang Tong sent me here," Lin Jin said. The latter grinned. Noticing that the old warden was missing a front tooth, Lin Jin guessed that he must have fallen out. Appraiser Ouyang has told me about you. How should I address you? The old warden asked with a smile. My surname is Lin. Oh, Appraiser Lin, please follow me. The old warden didn't ask any more questions and walked out with a lantern. Lin Jean glanced inside the house. Lying inside was a very old black hellhound, seemingly listless. Noticing Lin Jin's gaze, the old warden explained, That's my pet beast. It's been with me for more than 30 years now. Just like me, it's old. If it weren't for our blood contract, it would have died a long time ago. It's always like this, listless and sleepy. When I'm free, I don't disturb it, so I let it sleep. Lin Jean nodded without saying anything. Chapter 373. Next, the old warden led the way with a lantern in hand, while Lin Jean followed closely behind. Once inside the dark cell, the only source of light was this lantern. There were no lights down here, and most people would go insane after being locked up for a month or so. Hence, only prisoners on death row who had committed heinous crimes and were about to be executed would be locked up here. It was also for this reason that most of the cells in the dark cell were empty. There were only a few prisoners in the entire cell. As such, the deathly silence here instilled fear in people. After a while, Lin Jean suddenly said, The universe is divided into the sun and the moon. Everything has its yin and yang. It's the same for appraisers. There are good and evil, but evil isn't evil. Sometimes, righteous people do good deeds as well. I'm an open-minded person, so I can give you a chance. If you surrender and tell me the truth, I'll let you off. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. If you surrender and tell me the truth, I'll let you off the hook. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. Lin Jin's sudden words stunned the old warden. The old warden turned his head. Half of his face could be seen, while the other half was hidden away. It was an eerie sight. Appraiser Lin, what are you saying? Why don't I understand? The old warden chuckled. Lin Jean sighed and pointed at the old warden's clothes. Your clothes don't fit you well. You're holding the lantern in your right hand, and the smell of oil on your left sleeve is even stronger. Only people who carry a lantern in their left hand will smell like this. Also, you're a beast appraiser as well. You're using beast appraiser skills to fake the power of a blood contract. Do you think I bought my rank 3 beast appraiser qualification? The old warden's smile froze before he let out a dry chuckle. Hee hee, I've long heard of Appraiser Lin's reputation. I used to think that you were just a mediocre person who used imperial power to climb up the ranks. Now that I've met you, I know that rumors are harmful. As the old jailer spoke, he straightened his hunched back. Then, his body suddenly grew, and the clothes on his body were torn apart with a ripping sound. In just a few moments, the old prison warden had doubled in size. Although he still looked like a hunchbacked old man, he was now half a head taller than Lin Jean. Bone shrinking art. Lin Jean knew of a similar technique in martial arts. The man before him was tall, but after using this technique, he looked like a hunchbacked old man. Admittedly, such techniques were sometimes more realistic than camouflage and harder to detect. Lin Jean had been observant earlier, especially when it came to faking blood contract energy. There was no way he could hide it from the current Lin Jean, so he was able to see through it. But to be honest, the man's disguise was brilliant. Had it been anyone else, even a veteran like Appraiser Tan Sun, they might not have been able to see through it. At the end of the day, Lin Jean had the Museum of Deadly Beasts to back him up. Otherwise, he would be at a loss. Lin Jean knew the man was faking it, but what he said earlier was just a bluff. Who knew he would actually hit the nail on the head? The person before him should be the heretical cultivator who was imprisoned below. Why would he come out? Why would he disguise himself as an old jailer to receive him? There were only 2 possibilities. One was that Ouyang Tong had betrayed him. However, based on Lin Jin's observations, that wasn't the case. The other possibility was that the other party had been following Ouyang Tong all this time. Only then would they be able to grasp Ouyang Tong's movements and beat him at his own game, leading him into a trap. Lin Jean felt that the latter was more likely. Lin Jean and the man were currently facing each other in this dark cell. Their surroundings were pitch black, and the only light they could see was the lantern in the man's hand. Appraiser Lin, why are you being such a busybody? Let's talk this over. If you show me mercy, I'll reward you handsomely. Gold, silver, treasures, even rare beasts, you can have your pick of them. That's all I can offer you. But if you insist on being stubborn, don't blame me for being ruthless. You can choose whether you want to live or die. This was the usual form of coercion and bribery. Lin Jin smiled. Then what do you say? Give me that 8-headed viper. Do you agree? The moment he said this, the man's expression changed. You could tell. The man took a deep breath. Other than that, I can promise you anything else. Or, I can teach you the secret method of breeding an 8-headed viper. You can train it yourself in the future, and I promise to help you. Appraiser Lin, I believe you're a smart man. Since you know about 8-headed vipers, you should know that these creatures are born rank 4. If you have one in the future, you'll have a meteoric rise in status. The man said this confidently, as if he wasn't afraid that Lin Jin would reject him. Lin Jin smiled again and shook his head. Didn't Yang Qingshi tell you that I already have a rank 4 pet beast? Instantly, the man's expression froze with fear and a thick murderous aura. In that case, Appraiser Lin, you're determined to die. A rank 4 pet beast? Who do you think you're trying to scare? Do you think I'll believe you? Having said that, the man opened his mouth and blew out the candle in the lantern. In an instant, their surroundings were plunged into darkness. Lin Jin couldn't even see his own fingers. The moment the candle went out, Lin Jin smelled a pungent stench coming at him like a bolt of lightning. He knew that the man was trying to strike first. This man must be familiar with fighting in the dark, or else he wouldn't have extinguished the candle on his own accord. Usually, beast appraisers would hide their pet beasts in a duel. After all, if their opponent knew about their pet beast beforehand, they would be prepared. From the start, the man had used the Beastmaster scroll to hide his pet beast. Once the candle was extinguished, he attacked immediately. In this aspect, the man was experienced. At the very least, he was more experienced than Lin Jin when it came to fighting. Lin Jin had his own advantage, and that was that he was truly powerful. Since he couldn't avoid it, there was no need to. With a flick of his sleeve, dozens of silver needles shot out in a fan shape. Instantly, a wail of agony could be heard. The man made the first move, but Lin Jin counterattacked. Moreover, he was suppressed by Lin Jin's powerful needles. One could only imagine how frustrated the man was. But even if he was injured, he would surely have a follow-up. However, Lin Jin wouldn't give him a chance. His surroundings were pitch black, and Lin Jin couldn't see anything. This was indeed a disadvantage, so he didn't hesitate and summoned a ball of fire in his palm. It was dragon fire. Then, he brought it to his mouth and blew hard. In an instant, the flames erupted like a flood released from a dam. Under the illumination of the flames, Lin Jin could see the demonic appraiser's dumbfounded expression as well as a 2-headed snake. The snake's lower half was still in the demonic appraiser's stomach. It must have lunged forward but was repelled by the needles. When tried to attack again, it was met with a sea of fire. The biggest problem was that Lin Jin's dragon fire covered a wide area. There were no blind spots for the man to dodge. No matter what, he would be hit. Moreover, the sudden appearance of a sea of fire stunned both man and beast. Hence, they couldn't dodge in time. In the next instant, both man and beast were engulfed in flames, screaming in agony. Chapter 374. Lin Jin's dragon fire was now purer and hotter than average flames. The demonic appraiser was set ablaze. As he screamed in pain, he decisively drew his sword and cut his pet beast in half. Snake blood gushed out, extinguishing most of the flames on the appraiser's body. It was obvious that the man had no choice but to do so. At least he had a chance to escape the sea of fire. However, the severed 2-headed snake wasn't so lucky. Abandoned by its owner, it writhed in agony in the sea of fire. Moments later, it was burned to death. The demonic appraiser was at a disadvantage in just one exchange and almost lost his life. Although he was filled with hatred, he didn't dare to continue fighting. Especially now that his pet beast had been killed, he had no chance of winning. Since he couldn't go any further, he could only run deeper into the dark cell. Lin Jin obviously wouldn't let him get away just like that. It's a pity I didn't bring White Ape with me this time. Otherwise, he would be able to take care of the chase, Lin Jin mumbled. Then a ball of flame shot out from his arm. It was Xiaohua. After shrinking back to his normal size, he quickly gave chase. Lin Jin wasn't in a hurry. After walking for a while, he found a torch and lit it before slowly making his way over. There couldn't be a second exit in this dark cell, so the demonic appraiser couldn't possibly escape. Moreover, be it cultivation, blood contract level, or pet beast, Lin Jin had the upper hand over the demonic appraiser, so Lin Jin could relax a little. This time, Lin Jin was sure that the demonic appraiser had a helper. Alone, he couldn't possibly deceive everyone like this. Moreover, the nurturing of the eight-headed viper required frequent inspections and the use of demonic techniques, such as nutrients. The demonic appraiser couldn't possibly have gone there alone. At least, he couldn't do it alone. Hence, he had an accomplice. Lin Jin could basically confirm who it was. Appraiser Tan Sun and Appraiser Yang Qingshi used to be in charge of this matter. After that, Appraiser Tan Sun stopped paying attention to this matter. Instead, it was Yang Qingshi who kept getting involved. He was the one who frequently visited the Doom Manor and the Dark Cell. Lin Jin figured that perhaps this demonic appraiser would contact Yang Qingshi if he had nowhere else to go. When Yang Qingshi arrived, they would be caught red-handed and Lin Jin might even be able to take down this villain. After all, the enemy must have been alerted by now. Lin Jin was afraid that they would flee the moment they realized something was wrong. Hence, he wasn't in a hurry to chase after the demonic appraiser. With Xiaohua following him, the man wouldn't be able to escape. With this goal in mind, Lin Jin walked forward with the torch in hand. Soon, he reached the end. There was another death row inmate in the cell next door. His hair was unkempt and his face was dirty as he huddled in a corner. On the other side of the cell, the demonic appraiser was leaning against the wall with burn marks all over his body, panting heavily. Aside from pain, there was also disbelief in his eyes. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect Lin Jin to be this powerful. So powerful that he was utterly defeated in just one exchange. How could this be? The demonic appraiser growled through gritted teeth. Across him, Xiaohua stared at him silently. Currently, Xiaohua had become an important source of light in this dark cell. The Dharma body made Xiaohua look transparent, as if he was a spirit formed from flames. Lin Jin felt that it was time to strike a blow at the demonic appraiser. Only then would the demonic appraiser accept his fate and give up resisting. Have you heard of the Demonic Appraisal Association branch on Turtle Island in Reed City's Nine Bends River? Lin Jin suddenly asked. The demonic appraiser was dumbfounded. Needless to say, the man's expression spoke volumes. You've been there before? The demonic appraiser asked with narrowed eyes. Lin Jin nodded. Not only have I been there, but I've also destroyed Turtle Island. Lin Jin answered honestly. Fearing that the man wouldn't listen, Lin Jin explained the geography of Turtle Island, as well as what happened to Elder Zhou and the others. The demonic appraiser's expression changed rapidly. A hint of fear flashed in his eyes. You? Who are you? We've looked into it. There's no one as strong as you among the beast appraisers in Jade Dragon Kingdom. There was a hint of resentment in the demonic appraiser's voice. But soon he laughed maniacally. But you don't even know how much trouble you've gotten yourself into. You shouldn't have destroyed our branch. If you did, someone would have come after you. Do you think you're that great? You may be powerful in an intermediate country, but can you stop the experts of a premium country? How many rank 4 pet beasts can you handle? Rank 5 pet beasts? Ha ha, cough cough. After 2 maniacal laughs, the man began vomiting blood. Stunned, Lin Jin flicked his wrist and a silver needle flew out, piercing into the man's body. Lin Jin instantly understood what had happened. Earlier, when he burned the man's pet beast to death, the man had cut off the connection between him and his pet beast. It was a risky move, and he might have lost his life if he was careless. And this man's luck wasn't that great. Perhaps due to his severe injuries from Dragon Fire, The man had lost too much blood and his injuries were too severe. There was no doubt that he wouldn't be able to live much longer. Truth be told, Lin Jin didn't want the man to die. If he died, he wouldn't be able to testify against Yang Qingshi. Recalling the silver needle he left in the Du family's young lady, Du Lianxi, Lin Jin figured that someone must be Yang Qingshi. So, Lin Jin asked, "Is Yang Qingshi a member of your demonic appraisal association too?" The man scoffed. "I'm not F***king telling you." After two more laughs, his body withered and he breathed his last. Lin Jin waved his hand and Xiao Hua flew back in his right arm. Then he headed outside. He had to go to the Du family immediately. Although Lin Jin had never met Yang Qingshi before, he was certain that the man was a member of the Demonic Appraisal Association. The man still didn't know that the demonic appraiser was dead, so Lin Jin had to apprehend him and interrogate him to get a confession. Now that Lin Jin was on the stronger side, he had nothing to worry about. Although Yang Qingshi and Tan Sun were both rank 3 beast appraisers from headquarters, Lin Jin wasn't trying to brag. Even if all the rank 3 beast appraisers from headquarters attacked him together, they might not be his match. Hence, Lin Jin was determined to defeat Yang Qingshi. No one could stop him. After exiting the dark cell, Lin Jin waved his hand and a cloud appeared beneath his feet. He was getting more and more familiar with using the cloud mist skill. Although he still couldn't reach the level where he could soar through the 9 heavens, he could still fly a few hundred meters above the ground. Just a few more steps, and he would arrive at the Du Manor. After all, it was a straight line. Soon, Lin Jin arrived at the Du Manor. Without knocking on the door, he leaped over the wall and used camouflage to arrive at Du Lianxi's room. It was quiet here. There was no one around. However, Lin Jin could sense a presence. Someone must have just left. Entering the room, he saw Du Lianxi lying motionlessly on the ground. She was no longer breathing. Chapter 375. Lin Jin frowned. Although he had kept his needles, someone had tried to force them out with a spell. Back then, they had messed up the needle's aura, so Lin Jin couldn't detect what was going on. Who would have expected someone to kill Du Lianxi first? Things weren't that simple either. Lin Jin caught a whiff of blood and went over to lift the blanket. Sure enough, Du Lianxi's abdomen had been sliced open and her organs were empty. Someone had taken the 8-headed viper from her abdomen. Lin Jin raised his hand and retrieved his needles, only to see that they were stained with a layer of tainted blood. Evidently, it was this tainted blood that blocked his senses. At that instant, Lin Jin's expression darkened. He had been too confident. If he had been more prepared at that time, perhaps this poor girl would not have died. But it was too late for regrets now. *MNU, Yang Qingshi. Lin Jin glanced at Du Lianxi's delicate but bloodless face and gritted his teeth. Pulling the blanket over her, Lin Jin slowly walked out. Without another word, he leaped onto a cloud and flew toward headquarters. He was going to settle the score with Yang Qingshi. This *MN bastard was cruel. Even if he wanted to take away the 8-headed viper, he didn't have to kill anyone. Instead, he did it on purpose to vent his anger. If Lin Jin encountered someone like this, he would kill him. Not only would he kill him, but he would also destroy his reputation. Lin Jin was about to lose his mind. He rushed to headquarters as fast as he could and found the beast appraiser on duty to ask for Yang Qingshi's whereabouts. Headquarters had the records of all registered beast appraisers, so their addresses were clearly recorded as well. Where does Yang Qingshi live? Noticing that the appraiser was a little slow, Lin Jin grabbed the man by his collar and asked angrily. The appraiser was terrified. Although he was older than Lin Jin, he was completely suppressed by Lin Jin's aura. He didn't dare to breathe too loudly and could only say, "Appraiser, don't be like this. I'll help you check. After all, I can't remember anything." "Hurry up." Lin Jin swung his arm and the appraiser stumbled. But once he was free, he immediately started screaming, claiming that someone was causing trouble. He screamed at the top of his lungs. Not only was he screaming, but he was also running. Although it was the middle of the night, this shout immediately alerted the surroundings. Coincidentally, there was a team of city guards patrolling outside. When they heard the commotion, they immediately rushed over. Inside headquarters, guards appeared as well, along with a few beast appraisers draped in their robes as they ran out with confused looks on their faces. What happened? What happened? Why are you shouting? Could it be a thief? Everyone was talking at once. When the rank 1 beast appraiser saw that more people had arrived, he became bolder and shouted even louder. Everyone come quickly. There's a madman causing trouble here. He's pretending to be a rank 3 beast appraiser. Hurry up and capture him. The appraiser's throat was cracking from all the shouting. Lin Jin didn't expect this reaction, but it was clearly abnormal. There must be something wrong somewhere. After the city guards arrived, one of their leaders immediately inquired. After hearing the beast appraiser's words, he turned to Lin Jin suspiciously. Are you a beast appraiser or not? Why don't the appraisers from headquarters know who you are? As he spoke, he gestured for the city guards to surround him. The beast appraiser who shouted earlier was hiding behind the guards, sneaking glances at Lin Jin. Just then, the beast appraisers from headquarters arrived as well. One of them was Appraiser Wang, who was impressed by Lin Jin last night. Appraiser Wang had stayed at headquarters to organize the evaluation reports, so he didn't leave. Instead, he rushed over. The rank 1 beast appraiser who shouted earlier came forward to complain. Appraiser Wang was a rank 2 beast appraiser, and he was obviously acquainted with the city guard's patrol leader. The patrol leader even bowed at Appraiser Wang. Appraiser Wang, this appraiser from headquarters just shouted that there was a thief causing trouble, so we came over to take a look. Since you're a veteran appraiser, do you recognize this person? The patrol leader pointed at Lin Jin. Appraiser Wang was stunned at the sight. Then, he quickly jogged over and bowed at Lin Jin. Appraiser Lin, why are you here? Is there something urgent? His attitude was respectful. Although he was much older than Lin Jin, after last night's incident, Appraiser Wang was thoroughly convinced of Lin Jin's superiority. Hence, he was extremely respectful toward Lin Jin. Lin Jin was in a foul mood. One reason was because Yang Qingshi was so cruel that he killed innocent people. 2. Lin Jin could tell that the rank 1 beast appraiser was deliberately shouting. Since Lin Jin didn't know this person, it could only mean that he was under someone else's orders. Who? It could only be Yang Qingshi. Yang Qingshi, get your ass out here. Lin Jin shouted. He was truly enraged now. If Yang Qingshi was the one who ordered this beast appraiser to cause trouble and obstruct him, it meant that the man was at headquarters or had been here before. Lin Jin had made up his mind to make Yang Qingshi suffer, so he wasn't going to show him any mercy. His shout was so loud that everyone in headquarters heard it. Who was Yang Qingshi? After all, he was one of the few rank 3 beast appraisers in headquarters. Usually, no one dared to call him by his name. Now, that someone was calling him by his name and asking him to come out, it was no wonder that he was shocked. Appraiser Wang was the same. His expression changed. Appraiser Lin, what's going on? Lin Jin took a deep breath, looked around, and said, Yang Qingshi has colluded with demonic appraisers and committed heinous crimes. If he's at headquarters, bring him here immediately. If anyone dares to harbor him, don't blame Lin Jin for turning against them. Lin Jin was truly enraged. He wouldn't show mercy to anyone who dared to stop him now. The city guards? Lin Jin turned to look at the city guards. Their pet beasts whimpered in fear as they crouched on the ground, trembling in fear. The city guards were startled by this and began to panic. The patrol leader had heard it loud and clear. Lin Jin, in a trance, the patrol leader recalled this name. He had heard his superior, a general, mention this name before. The general had warned him not to provoke appraiser Lin Jin if he ever ran into him. That general's tone back then was no joke. Now that the patrol leader recalled this name, he was certain that this man before him was the man the general had mentioned. He mustn't be provoked. Lin Jin's aura was too strong. Perhaps it was because he had always been a good-tempered man that he gave off the impression that he was easy to talk to and friendly. But now, after he bared his fangs, no one would be able to remain calm. Lin Jin suddenly came to his senses. He turned to the patrol leader and said, Inform the guards to seal the gates and forbid anyone from leaving the city. Tell them that this is an order from General Lu Bin. In the military, Lin Jin obviously didn't hold any official position, so it wasn't proper for him to issue orders. However, Lin Jin was panicking, so he gave the order to the city guards. He would use Lu Bin's name. After all, Lu Bin wouldn't blame him if he found out about this. In any case, Lin Jin wasn't going to let Yang Qingshi off today, no matter what. Chapter 376. All Lin Jin could think of was that Yang Qingshi would most likely run away. This was understandable. After all, Yang Qingshi believed that if something happened to the demonic appraisers, there was a high chance that he would be exposed. If Yang Qingshi didn't want to run, he wouldn't have dug out the 8-headed viper from Du Lianxi's stomach. Since he had done so, it meant that he was planning to defect. Hence, when Lin Jin thought of this, he immediately ordered for the city gates to be sealed. He had to be quick. When the patrol leader heard this, he jumped in fright. Sealing the city gates was no joke. As a mere corporal, he didn't have the authority to do so. However, as a soldier, General Lu Bin's name resounded like thunder. Moreover, he had heard his superior mention Lin Jin's name before, so he didn't dare to refuse. He quickly ordered his subordinates to split up and inform the city guards. As he watched the city guards leave, Lin Jin hoped that they wouldn't be too late. He reckoned that Yang Qingshi hadn't left the royal capital yet. After all, he couldn't be that fast. Lin Jin's response would definitely surpass Yang Qingshi's expectations, so there was a good chance that he could intercept the intruder. Even if he couldn't intercept the intruder, Lin Jin wouldn't let him go. In any case, Lin Jin had this bastard in his sights. If he didn't capture him, he wouldn't let this matter rest. The commotion in front of headquarters must have caused a commotion. Beast appraisers who were sleeping soundly in their homes were woken up and gradually made their way over. Not only appraisers, but the government officials had also arrived. After all, Lin Jin's shout earlier might not have startled the entire royal capital, but everyone on this street had heard it. More and more people gathered at the scene. Some of them mused, something big is about to happen. More than 10 rank 2 beast appraisers from headquarters had arrived. Some of them recognized Lin Jin, while others didn't. However, Lin Jin didn't retract his aura. If he wanted to cause trouble, he wouldn't hold back. The beast deterrence force was unleashed without a care in the world. Every single beast in the area was so frightened that they dared not make a sound. Many beast appraisers noticed this as well, and they were all horrified by it. Appraisers who initially had some complaints about Lin Jin now cleverly kept their mouths shut. Appraiser Tan Sun had arrived. Other than Appraiser Tan Sun, 2 other rank 3 beast appraisers from headquarters were here as well. Lin Jin had met one of them before. He was Yumantang, the youngest rank 3 beast appraiser in the Jade Dragon Kingdom. Just like Tan Sun, the other appraiser was a veteran beast appraiser named Chu Qinghe. He was a reputable and respected beast appraiser in the Jade Dragon Kingdom. Yumantang knew Lin Jin. Of course, he wasn't convinced that Lin Jin had gotten rank 3 all of a sudden. After all, Lin Jin had stolen his limelight. However, Yumantang knew what was good for him. As soon as he arrived and sensed Lin Jin's aura, his eyes widened and he wisely swallowed the words he was about to say. Appraiser Lin, this is... Tan Sun, who was the closest to Lin Jin, stepped forward to ask. Lin Jin was respectful to Tan Sun, so he cupped his fists and explained the situation in detail. He didn't hide anything. Everyone gasped when they heard this. Lin Jin pointed at the appraiser who had been yelling earlier and said, "This person tried to stop us on purpose. I'm guessing he must be related to that Yang Qingshi." Tan Sun glanced at him and nodded. He is indeed one of appraiser Yang Qingshi's students. Zheng Yuan, come over here. Let me ask you, did appraiser Yang tell you anything? The rank 1 beast appraiser was startled. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on him. He had also heard Lin Jin's explanation. Colluding with demonic appraisers. Committing atrocities against the heavens. Each of these was a heinous crime. Upon being questioned by Tan Sun, the man was scared out of his wits. His face drained of blood as he quickly knelt on the ground and confessed everything. It was just as Lin Jin had guessed. Yang Qingshi had rushed over earlier, saying that an appraiser named Lin Jin would be coming to question him. Yang Qingshi then instructed the man to think of a way to stall Lin Jin. Appraiser Tan's son, I really didn't know what Yang Qingshi had done. I really didn't. The man stuttered as he tried to explain. At first, some people didn't believe Lin Jin's explanation, but after seeing the man's reaction, his story seemed more believable. Unable to resist, Yu Mantang said, Appraiser Yang Qingshi has a high status and is one of the rank 3 beast appraisers at headquarters. Why would he collude with demonic cultivators? I don't believe it. It wasn't that Yu Mantang wanted to go against Lin Jin, but since he was familiar with Yang Qingshi, he didn't believe Lin Jin. Lin Jin smirked. I didn't ask everyone to believe me immediately. You could just treat it as my own words. If you want to find out the truth, it's simple. Call Yang Qingshi out here, and we'll have a face-to-face confrontation. Everyone will know the truth once they see it. Yu Mantang was at a loss for words. Another rank 3 beast appraiser, Chu Qinghe, spoke up. Although I don't quite believe it either, Appraiser Lin is right. Only the person involved can come forward and verify who's right and wrong. Then, the truth will be revealed. Lin Jin glanced at Chu Qinghe. He could tell that the man was a sensible appraiser, so Lin Jin saluted him with a fist salute. Appraiser Yang Qingshi has a consultation hall at headquarters. Get someone to take a look, Tan Sun instructed. Compared to the others, he knew Lin Jin better than anyone else. He had never seen Lin Jin this angry before. Moreover, this was a serious matter. A rank 3 beast appraiser from headquarters had colluded with demonic appraisers to harm the innocent. Whether it was true or not, this was a huge blow to the Beast Appraisal Association. Hence, no matter what, Tan Sun had to find Yang Qingshi and get to the bottom of this. In Tang Sun's mind, he hoped that this was just a misunderstanding. Soon, the person who went to look for Yang Qingshi returned. Appraiser Yang isn't in the consultation hall. Also, the person hesitated to finish his sentence. Tang Sun was enraged. And what? Spit it out. Yes, yes. The person quickly said, several spirit herbs planted in flower pots in Appraiser Yang's consultation hall have been uprooted. Tan Sun's eyes widened. Others might not know, but Tan Sun knew very well that the spirit herbs planted in Yang Qingshi's consultation hall were extremely valuable. He had even helped Yang Qingshi out quite a bit. Who uprooted the spirit herbs? It could only be Yang Qingshi. After all, there was a special restriction on the herbs. No one but Yang Qingshi could have taken them away. If Yang Qingshi was the culprit, then the culprit must have escaped from punishment, just like Lin Jin had said. Otherwise, why would Yang Qingshi uproot these priceless spirit herbs? At this point, Lin Jin was 100% sure of his deduction. But even though he was anxious, he couldn't afford to lose his composure. His previous deduction was correct. With his quick response, Yang Qingshi might not be able to leave the city in time. As long as he was still within the city, Lin Jin wouldn't be able to escape. If there was a need, Lin Jin could just make a trip to the palace and look for Emperor Heqian. He believed the latter wouldn't reject his request. Just as Lin Jin was deep in thought, the sound of horses' hooves and footsteps could be heard coming from the opposite side of the street. Then hundreds of city guard arrived. Everyone paled in fright. Although there were plenty of experts here, they could fight one-on-one. But to have them go up against so many organized city guards was out of the question. Chapter 377. Anyone would be astounded to see at least 500 to 600 elite city guards and random pet beasts. This was definitely the power of the government. Moreover, it wasn't the power of the government. To be able to mobilize so many elites was impossible. Those who were more knowledgeable could tell that this was the work of a higher-ranking official. But the problem was this was too fast. In addition, it was still unknown who these elite city guards were coming for. Everyone had different thoughts, but they were all waiting to see what would happen. Just then, a general in golden armor walked out from the city guards with a golden lion pet beast. He approached Lin Jin and saluted him. The royal guard's left Governor Feng Xian has received orders to assist Appraiser Lin in apprehending the demonic cultivator. Please give us your orders, Appraiser Lin. His voice was loud and his aura was imposing. This was a true military general. His aura could intimidate most beasts. Moreover, while the golden lion behind him was only a rank 3 pet beast, it was definitely one of the most powerful rank 3 beasts. It was a lion that had been through hundreds of battles. Everyone was shocked to hear this. No doubt, Lin Jin's relationship with the royal guards was extraordinary. Even the royal guards were mobilized, and the one leading them was the left governor. This was a true general that no ordinary person could mobilize. When they recalled that Lin Jin's promotion was made an exception by the royal decree, everyone knew who had sent them. But the same thing happened. It was too fast and too timely. What did this mean? It meant that His Majesty the Emperor immediately responded to Lin Jin's request. No one dared to think further. In any case, everyone here, including the indignant Yumantang, knew full well that Lin Jin wasn't someone they should provoke. They couldn't afford to. Even His Majesty the Emperor had placed so much importance on this matter that he had sent troops to assist them. None of them had the authority to do so. Even people like them who weren't involved knew that His Majesty had sent them here. How could Lin Jin not know? But now, he had to accept the Emperor's favor. The patrolling soldiers weren't enough, and they might not have been able to command the city guards. But this left Governor Feng Xian was different. As soon as Lin Jin said so, the military governor replied, "Don't worry, Appraiser Lin. I've already ordered for the city to be sealed off. From now on, not even a fly will be able to escape." His words were resolute and full of confidence. Lin Jin believed him. Since he said so, he would definitely be able to do it. "All right, thank you, Overseer Feng." Since the man was giving him face, Lin Jin couldn't put on airs, so he politely thanked him. "Also, if it's convenient, I'd like to ask Governor Feng to search the city. I believe that if Yang Qingshi is unable to leave the city, he must be hiding somewhere. With such a high pressure, he will most likely choose to break out of the encirclement. If that's the case, as long as he shows himself, he won't be able to escape." At Lin Jin's words, Overseer Feng obeyed his orders and left. This was what he said before he left. Appraiser Lin is a member of the Guardian Division and has the responsibility of protecting the nation. If anything happens in the future, you can issue an order to the military flags of the various prefectures. No one would dare disobey your orders. Lin Jin smiled. So, as a guardian of the nation, he had such authority? But that didn't matter. Capturing Yang Qingshi was more important now. Lin Jin would never let this man go. At the thought of that pitiful girl from the Du family and her tragic death, Lin Jin was infuriated. Most importantly, Yang Qingshi had murdered someone right under his nose. This was a blatant provocation. If the man dared to challenge him, he should be prepared to be killed. With Overseer Feng in charge, the entire royal capital was sleepless that night. In the next few hours, the 500 elites of the Royal City Guard and the 2,000 soldiers that came later searched the entire royal city. It could be said that other than the palace, no other place, not even the residences of high-ranking officials, could escape the search. Under such circumstances, no one dared to harbor Yang Qingshi. No matter how bold they wouldn't dare to do so. Meanwhile, in a manor somewhere in the royal capital, "Quick, quick, get that Yang guy out of here. We don't know who that bastard offended or what kind of trouble he's gotten himself into. Even Governor Feng has been alerted. We're going to have to search for him. If we find out he's hiding here, we won't have an easy time," said a high-ranking official anxiously to a trusted aide beside him. That aide was scared out of his wits. Speaking of which, Yang Qingshi's status wasn't low. As one of the rank 3 beast appraisers in headquarters, he had a close relationship with many high-ranking officials in the royal capital. When the city gates were sealed, Yang Qingshi was a step too late. In the end, he couldn't leave the city. Knowing that he had nowhere else to run, he had no choice but to return to the royal capital. There was no way he could return home, so he came to the residence of a high-ranking official, saying that he would stay for the night. At first, the high-ranking official had no idea what was going on. He welcomed Yang Qingshi warmly and prepared food, hot water for him to wash up, and even arranged for a servant to wait on him. But soon he received news of this. Cold sweat broke out all over his body, and he almost fainted. He knew that if anyone found out about this, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. It was best for him to get rid of this plague, Yang Qingshi, as soon as possible. It would be best if the man never returned. Otherwise, if anyone found out that he was harboring Yang Qingshi, he would be in deep trouble. Master, that Yang Qingshi must have stirred up a huge mess, or else he wouldn't have caused such a huge ruckus. I heard that headquarters is on the hunt for him as well. Yang Qingshi is done for. Plus, he looked so fierce when he first arrived. I'm afraid he won't listen to us. Now that the royal capital is sealed, he has nowhere to run. Why don't we inform Overseer Feng? That way, he might be able to lessen his punishment. The aide calmly thought about it and tried to persuade him. The high-ranking official pondered for a moment and felt that it made sense. Yang Qingshi might not listen to them, even if they tried to persuade him. More importantly, if Yang Qingshi was captured and he tried to persuade him, he would be even more guilty. On the other hand, if he reported Yang Qingshi now, he would at least be able to clear his name. When the time came, he could just say that he didn't know anything. When he found out that Yang Qingshi was being arrested, he immediately reported it. That way, it wouldn't be considered a crime. At this thought, the high-ranking official's eyes narrowed. He stopped in his tracks and said, "Let's go. We'll inform Overseer Feng." Having said that, he turned to leave. But after taking a few steps, a man suddenly appeared at the door with a saber-toothed tiger beside him. The man's face darkened as he put on a fake smile. "Lord Zhou, we've been brothers for a long time. I didn't expect you to sell me out so quickly. Lord Zhou, you're not a good person at all." "Ah, Yang Qingshi." Lord Zhou jumped in fright. He couldn't understand why Yang Qingshi would be here. Wasn't he supposed to be resting in the guest room? Taking a closer look, Lord Zhou noticed bloodstains on Yang Qingshi's sleeves, and the tiger's mouth was covered in blood. However, the blood definitely didn't belong to Yang Qingshi or the tiger. Just then, a servant shouted in horror, "Someone's dead. The servants and maids in the guest room are all dead." At this, Lord Zhou knew something was wrong. Using a secret art, I can temporarily raise my pet beast to a pseudo-rank 4. Let me ask you, who in your humble Zhou manor can stop a rank 4 pet beast? Yang Qingshi laughed maniacally. Amidst the laughter, he single-handedly directed a feast of slaughter. Be it those who resisted or tried to escape, they all ended up dead under the claws and fangs of the ferocious tiger. Yang Qingshi had planned to kill everyone here right from the start. Only by doing so would he be able to keep the situation under wraps, and he would have time to carry out the next step of his plan. Come to think of it, Yang Qingshi didn't expect Lin Jin to react so quickly. All this while, he had been working with that demonic appraiser to control everything from the shadows. He had been extremely careful, able to detect even the slightest movement. When Lin Jin went to investigate the Du Manor during the day, Yang Qingshi was the first to find out. Yang Qingshi immediately knew something was amiss. Others might have looked down on Lin Jin, thinking that he had gotten to where he was because of his connections, but Yang Qingshi didn't think so. He had seen Lin Jin's evaluation reports at Tan Sun's place. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that in the entire royal capital, even including Tan Sun, Yang Qingshi was the one who understood Lin Jin the most. Only Yang Qingshi knew that Lin Jin was the real deal. He was a true expert. Because of this, when Yang Qingshi found out that Lin Jin had suddenly gone to the Du Manor, he knew something was wrong. He had already planned to escape. However, Yang Qingshi was overconfident. He assumed that Lin Jin had no idea what was going on. When he found out that Lin Jin had gone to the dark prison, Yang Qingshi immediately snuck into the Du Manor and dug out the 8-headed viper's fetus from Du Lianxi's stomach. Then, he planned to make his escape. Of course, due to the urgency of the situation, he had to bring some items with him. To his surprise, the slightest delay gave Lin Jin the perfect opportunity. By then, Yang Qingshi was already at the city gates. However, the gates were sealed, and there were at least 200 soldiers guarding the area. Yang Qingshi didn't dare to force his way in. After all, he had a backup plan. Hence, he fled back to the Zhou Manor. Given the current situation, it would be extremely difficult to leave the city. Moreover, Yang Qingshi didn't expect Lin Jin's influence to be so great that he could mobilize thousands of city guards to hunt him down. Yang Qingshi hadn't expected this at first. Now that he had killed them, 1, to inform them of his arrival, and 2, to prepare for the next step of his plan. Yang Qingshi understood that he wouldn't be able to break out of the encirclement with his own strength. Even if he used a secret technique and sacrificed his pet beast's lifespan to forcefully raise its strength to rank 4, he still wouldn't be able to do it. In that case, he could only look for help. By now, the entire Zhou family was dead. Corpses littered the ground, and the stench of blood permeated the air. Yang Qingshi stood in the middle of the courtyard filled with corpses, looking up at the moon. Yang Qingshi, could have toyed with the entire royal capital in the palm of my hand. Everyone here is but an ant in my eyes. But because of one person, I ended up in such a sorry state. Haha, so what? How can mere beast appraisal association of an intermediate country stop me? Yang Qingshi's face was still as proud as ever, as if victory was still within his grasp even at this stage. Next, he controlled his pet beast to toss all the Zhou family members' corpses into the pond in the backyard. Every single one of them was bitten, and some even had severed limbs. The entire Zhou family, including the servants, totaled up to 37 people. All of them were tossed into the pond. The originally green water was now dyed crimson. The moonlight is beautiful tonight. There is no need for this, but since you forced my hand, don't blame me for bathing the royal capital in blood. Yang Qingshi let out a hearty laugh as he turned to look at his pet beast, the rank 4 tiger. You go down as well. You've been with me for so long. Help me one last time today. Having said that, Yang Qingshi performed a spell. The tiger let out a deafening roar before leaping into the pond. Soon, it sank into the water, drowning itself. It was a bizarre and terrifying scene. Yang Qingshi took out a porcelain bottle. The seal on the bottle was yellow, and it looked old. Clearly, it had been around for a long time. Master, it's not that this disciple is incompetent. It's just that the plan can't keep up with the changes. This time, only you can save me. Having said that, Yang Qingshi opened the bottle and poured out a drop of viscous blood into the pond. Chapter 379. Strangely enough, as soon as the drop of blood fell into the pool, the water instantly turned crimson as if it was filled with blood. Yang Qingshi chanted a series of incantations, and the blood pool began to boil. Severed limbs began to tumble about, and occasionally, a few heads would emerge from the pool. It was a horrifying sight. As the incantation grew louder, the blood in the pool began to stir, as if something was about to emerge from the pool. Unbeknownst to them, the moon in the sky had turned into a blood moon. This change was naturally discovered by the city guards who were searching in Royal City. Moreover, if one looked closely, they would see that, in fact, a crimson blood mist was rising from the bottom up. Looking at the moon through the mist, one could see that it was a blood moon. General, look over there. While searching, a deputy general suddenly saw a house in front of them. It was the source of the rising blood mist. The lieutenant governor frowned at the sight. Let's go take a look. Hundreds of city guards hurried over. This is the assistant minister's residence, Assistant Minister Zhou's home. The lieutenant governor was familiar with the layout of the royal capital, especially the court officials. Knock on the door. At his command, a soldier came forward to knock on the door. However, after knocking for a long time, no one answered. Strange. The governor of the left turned to look at the deputy general beside him. The latter immediately understood and ordered 2 nimble soldiers to leap over the wall and enter to investigate. After the 2 soldiers entered, there was no movement for a long time. Suddenly, a scream came from inside. Break the door open and charge in. The lieutenant governor had already sensed something was amiss. Upon hearing the scream, he immediately made up his mind. Even if it was a court official's residence, he couldn't care less. With a loud bang, the door was flung open. Armed and accompanied by pet beasts, the city guards swarmed in. The moment they entered, they could smell the stench of blood. "General, should we inform Appraiser Lin?" the deputy general asked softly. After some thought, the lieutenant governor nodded. He was one of the few people who had witnessed Lin Jin's methods. He was also present at the Jade Dragon Temple. Hence, it was safer to seek Appraiser Lin's help in such a strange situation. Immediately, a soldier obeyed the order and rode away. After that, they searched the entire assistant minister's residence, but they could not find anyone. They only saw bloodstains on the ground, but there was no corpse. All the way to the back garden. After the soldiers entered, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. Of the two soldiers who had climbed over the wall, one had already turned into a mummy and died a miserable death. The other was grabbed by a tall man who was covered in blood, biting his neck and sucking his blood. The one who screamed just now was this soldier. The terrifying thing was that the soldier's martial arts were not bad. The steel saber in his hand was still slashing at the man's body, but the man didn't seem to care at all. Even in the face of a swarm of people, this man didn't care at all. He was focused on sucking human blood as if there was no one around. This scene caused even the soldiers to turn pale with fright, and they didn't dare to act rashly. After sucking the blood dry, the man threw the corpse aside as if it was a piece of trash. It could be seen that this person, who was covered in blood, only had a big mouth on his head. His facial features gradually became clearer. The governor of the left came in and saw this scene. What kind of monster is this? Even the experienced and knowledgeable governor of the left widened his eyes in disbelief as he stared at the thing in front of him. This thing looked like a human, but it had beast claws and a beast tail. It was covered in layers of scales, but its facial features were that of a human. It was at least 2 heads taller than an ordinary person. "Release the arrows." The governor of the left knew that this thing was dangerous. Since it had killed his subordinates, it was an enemy. Naturally, there was no need for him to be polite and kill it first. As soon as he gave the order, dozens of soldiers holding longbows immediately knocked their bows and released arrows. The military's hard bows had a great pulling force, and the greater the pulling force, the greater the power. At this distance, the sharp arrowheads, which were specially smelted, could easily pierce through iron armor. In the next moment, the arrows flew out. It was almost impossible to dodge at this distance. As expected, the dozens of arrows all pierced the strange man's body. But strangely, as if he couldn't feel any pain, the man chuckled and spoke. "My dear disciple, since you used this secret technique to summon my clone here, I'll lend you a hand. In the Jade Dragon Kingdom's capital, the only powerful being is that undying old dragon. Other than that, I don't care about any rank 4 beasts. But even if that old dragon is here, it won't help. I don't mind letting it die prematurely." Having said that, the man moved and pounced on the nearest city guard. He was so fast that no one could react in time. In the blink of an eye, several soldiers died tragically. Blood gushed out, and the already dried-up pond was now filled with fresh blood. Slowly, it turned into a pool of blood that was so red that it was blinding to the eyes. And deep at the bottom of the pool, no one noticed that there was a line of blood that extended upwards, connecting to the strange man's body. At the same time, Lin Jin hurried over. Accompanying him were a few beast appraisers from headquarters, including Tan's son. After all, headquarters was involved in this incident, so they couldn't just ignore it. Hence, the elderly beast appraisers couldn't get a good rest in the middle of the night. At that moment, a command arrow tore through the air and exploded in the air. As it exploded into a ball of fire, it was accompanied by an ear-piercing whistling sound. That's a signal arrow. It can't be used unless it's an emergency. "Something's happened to the general," a messenger soldier shouted. This signal arrow could be seen and heard by the entire capital. From now on, most of the city guards will be rushing over. On the other hand, Lin Jin frowned at this. His instincts told him that something was off. Firstly, Yang Qingshi might not have the ability to force an expert like the lieutenant governor to issue a command arrow, unless Yang Qingshi had a helper, and that helper was extremely powerful. But if that was the case, why didn't he just bring Yang Qingshi out of the city? Why would he waste time fighting against the seemingly endless number of city guards? However, even if Lin Jin felt like something was amiss, he couldn't put his finger on it. Moreover, he couldn't possibly stop the city guards who were rushing over. Hence, he could only pick up his pace. Previously, he had been concerned about Tan Sun and the others, but now, he couldn't care less. A cloud appeared beneath Lin Jin's feet, and he leaped into the air, flying over. Many jaws dropped to the ground at this scene. Lin Jin was the first to arrive. When he entered the vice minister's manor, the smoke from the signal arrow hadn't even dissipated yet. It was a testament to his incredible speed. Upon arriving, Lin Jin took a deep breath. The first thing he noticed was a familiar scent. It was the stench of an 8-headed centipede. So it's here. Lin Jin narrowed his eyes. This time, he couldn't let the enemy escape no matter what. Without another word, Lin Jin took out the nebula flag he refined and tossed it forward. Nebula barrier. The lion coughed up a mouthful of blood, and as soon as it landed, the monster chased after it, preparing to use its sharp claws to tear the lion's throat. In the nick of time, Lin Jin flicked his finger and shot out a needle. Strangely enough, this blood monster was unafraid of any kind of attack. Be it arrows or saber slashes, this monster didn't even dodge or look at them. It was as if it had an immortal body. But this time, Lin Jin's tiny needle struck fear into the blood monster's heart. It immediately retracted its hand and dodged. And with that, the golden lion managed to survive. The needle pierced into a rock nearby and completely sank into it. The rock was instantly covered in cracks that resembled a spider web. If Lin Jin were to touch it again, it would probably shatter into pieces. As Lin Jin landed, his nose and mouth were filled with the stench of blood. Based on the situation here, at least 100 people had died in the hands of this blood monster. Appraiser Lin, be careful of this blood monster, the lieutenant governor reminded. The lieutenant governor reminded Lin Jin. Lin Jin nodded, but didn't attack immediately. Instead, he looked at the injured soldier's pet beast. Besides the golden lion, there were more than a dozen injured pet beasts. Some of them were so badly injured that their stomachs were split open. Lin Jin knew that he was involved in today's incident. If it weren't for him, these brave soldiers wouldn't have gotten involved. Hence, he felt apologetic, but more than that, he was furious. With a flick of his sleeve, Lin Jin unleashed his coiled wire needle to its fullest extent. The pet beasts with lighter injuries were immediately able to stand up, while those with heavier injuries were quickly mended with the coiled wire needle. At the same time, Lin Jin took out a bottle of pills and fed them to the injured pet beasts. The situation was under control in an instant. Other than those who were already dead and Lin Jin couldn't bring them back to life, Lin Jin would do his best to treat the rest, no matter how badly injured they were. This alone was enough to stun everyone. Anyone with a little common sense would know that most beast appraisers weren't capable of this. The blood monster didn't continue attacking. For one, it was still wary of Lin Jin. For two, it was curious as to how this young beast appraiser had such skills. No matter where he was, even if he was in a premium country, he would still be considered one of the best. As the saying went, the expert knew the ropes. The blood monster was definitely an expert in this field. Hence, it kept nodding at Lin Jin with admiration in its eyes. Great needle technique, great technique. The Crimson Man actually praised him. Meanwhile, Lin Jin quickly treated the injured pet beasts. As for the injured soldiers, Lin Jin could only give them a simple treatment. Even so, the soldiers were grateful and excited to see Lin Jin. Especially since Lin Jin had saved their pet beasts. This was a huge favor. Soldiers were iron-blooded, but they were also gentle. This was especially true for companions like pet beasts that had always been by their side. They treated them like family. They thought the injured pet beasts wouldn't be able to survive, so the despair and sorrow they felt was indescribable. But at the end of the tunnel, Lin Jin came and treated them all. Even the ones who were the most severely injured didn't give up. With this, he won over the soldiers' hearts. "Thank you, Appraiser Lin." One of the soldiers couldn't help but kowtow. Lin Jean helped him up and had them leave with the lieutenant governor. "We are willing to fight alongside Appraiser Lin and face death with equanimity." None of the soldiers wanted to leave as they shouted with glaring eyes. Lin Jin's expression darkened as he turned to the lieutenant governor. The latter understood what Lin Jin meant. They had fought this blood monster earlier, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were no match for it. Hence, they would only be a burden if they stayed here any longer. The lieutenant governor was a wise man, so he immediately shouted, "Soldiers, listen up, follow me, and leave this place immediately." Now that the lieutenant governor had given the order, the soldiers didn't dare to disobey. Once the soldiers left, Lin Jin could focus on dealing with the blood monster. Come to think of it, Lin Jin had been on high alert since the beginning. He thought the blood monster would take this opportunity to launch a sneak attack, but it didn't. While the monster was sizing Lin Jin up, Lin Jin was doing the same. Unlike the others, Lin Jin was able to observe the monster closely. He could tell that this blood monster was just a clone of a master spellcaster. Chapter 381. Although Lin Jin didn't know how to create a clone, that didn't mean he didn't know. Lin Jin glanced at the man's location and the pool of blood beside him. Lin Jin had a rough idea of what was going on. "Where's Yang Qingshi?" Lin Jin suddenly asked. The man laughed. "That disciple of mine should be out of the city by now." There was a hint of smugness in his voice. That might not be the case. Lin Jin closed his eyes to sense his surroundings. Then, he abruptly opened his eyes and invoked a spell. With a flick of his sleeve, clouds formed into a vortex, and a person was thrown out of it. It was Yang Qingshi. The man was stunned. He looked up at the sky, and only then did he notice the nebula barrier. "I miscalculated. My flesh clone's senses are unclear. It actually failed to detect the barrier you laid down. Sigh, I was tricked by a junior like you." The blood-red man's tone was calm, as if he was talking about something trivial. Lin Jin knew this tone meant that the man was confident. And that was the truth. For this man to appear here in the form of a demonic clone, it meant that he was very far away. Yang Qingshi must have summoned him here using some demonic spell. It was only because he was capable that he was able to escape so easily. Yang Qingshi, who had fallen to the ground, hurriedly got up. Looking around, he was shocked. He had tried to rush out several times, but failed each time. On his last attempt, he was shrouded in the clouds. Then, he felt the world spinning around him, and he found himself here. Other than his master's clone, there was another young man here. This young man had an extraordinary bearing and wore a 3-ringed beast-pattern sleeve band. One look, and Yang Qingshi knew who he was. Lin Jin. Although he had never met Lin Jin before, he knew all the rank 3 beast appraisers in Jade Dragon Kingdom, except for this Lin Jin. The situation was clear. This Lin Jin was the one who set up the barrier to stop him from leaving. And it was because of this Ned Lin Jin that Yang Qingshi had no choice but to flee. If Lin Jin hadn't gotten involved, no one would have known about his plan, and he would still be one of the most respected rank 3 beast appraisers in headquarters. At the thought of this, Yang Qingshi was enraged. "Lin Jin, I have no grudge against you, so why did you force me into this state? Since you won't let me live, I won't let you live either. Today, one of us will die." Yang Qingshi gritted his teeth. It was Lin Jin's first time meeting Yang Qingshi. The other party was immaculately dressed, but it was a pity that he had a golden exterior and was rotten inside. His actions today had crossed Lin Jin's bottom line. Yang Qingshi was no fool. Despite his words, his pet beast had already sacrificed itself to summon his master's flesh and blood. Yang Qingshi knew he couldn't win if he were to fight Lin Jin alone. Disregarding everything else, just the fact that the other party was able to set up a barrier to prevent him from leaving and teleport him here in the blink of an eye was already beyond his understanding. However, he wasn't afraid, because his master's flesh and blood clone was still here. Yang Qingshi knew better than anyone what kind of person his master was, so he was still confident. Without his pet beast, Yang Qingshi was like a toothless tiger, nothing to be afraid of. Right now, Lin Jin's biggest threat was still that blood-colored freak. Nice move. I didn't expect there to be an expert like you in a mere intermediate country to be able to use the nebula barrier so vividly. TSK. Impressive. Your name is Lin Jin, isn't it? The blood-colored freak suddenly spoke and took a step forward. Yang Qingshi took a few steps back as well, hiding behind the freak. However, his eyes were filled with venom. Lin Jin could tell, but he didn't stop him. After all, he had the upper hand in this nebula barrier. Although the blood-colored freak was mysterious and unfathomable, Lin Jin had his own trump card. When necessary, he could borrow the museum's aura to strengthen himself. Either way, Lin Jin was determined to get rid of Yang Qingshi today. If he could capture him alive, he would. If not, he would just kill him. Master, this is Lin Jin. He ruined my plans and forced me to stop. If it weren't for him, the 8-headed viper would have hatched in a few days, Yang Qingshi suddenly said. The blood-colored freak nodded with a smile. I know. He didn't seem to mind at all. Then, he turned to Lin Jin, his eerie facial features still carrying an inexplicable smile. Lin Jin, I've never heard of such a person before. But that's all right. It's fate that we met today. Lin Jin, I've never heard of such a person before. But that's all right. It's fate that we met today. Let me be frank. I appreciate your talent. So if you acknowledge me as your master and work for me from now on, I can forget about what happened today. Not only will I forget about it, but I'll also impart to you supreme knowledge in the future. I can even help you ascend to immortality. Master this. Yang Qingshi was stunned. He never expected his master to say something like this. However, the blood-colored freak ignored Yang Qingshi and continued to stare at Lin Jin with his eerie eyes. If you don't agree, I will destroy you today. Forget you. I can easily destroy a small intermediate country's royal capital. As it spoke, the blood-colored scales on the blood-colored monster's body became thicker and thicker. The blood energy on its body became thicker and thicker, and the surrounding blood was constantly being sucked into the blood-colored monster's body. Yang Qingshi looked jealous, but he didn't dare to say anything else. He knew very well that he was only one of his master's many disciples. At best, he was just a pawn with some use. Lin Jin wore an odd expression as he stared at the 10-foot-tall freak. He asked, "How should I address you?" The freak chuckled. "You can call me Patriarch Shui Pao, or you can just call me Patriarch Shui." Lin Jin chuckled as well. "You talk big just now, but it's a pity I've never heard of you. If I've never heard of you, then you must be a nameless nobody. How can I trust the words of a nameless nobody? Also, forget a nameless nobody like you. Even if a legendary true immortal were here today, I wouldn't give you any face. Yang Qingshi, come over here." Lin Jin's last few words were laced with coldness. As soon as he spoke, he raised his hand to summon a cloud of mist that swept toward Yang Qingshi, who was hiding behind the freak. Yang Qingshi was startled. Knowing that he was no match for Lin Jin, he didn't even think about retaliating. Instead, he cried out in surprise, "Master!" The freak was enraged. "Ignorant brat, you're shameless." The roar was so deafening that it made Lin Jin's head spin. However, he recovered in the blink of an eye. After all, he had Xiaohua's yin-yang dharma body. However, this freak was indeed powerful. The freak exuded a beastly aura that was close to rank 5, almost on par with the old dragon at Jade Dragon Temple. However, Lin Jin knew that this freak was stronger than the old dragon. The old dragon was at the end of his lifespan, and his spells weren't that powerful. He mostly relied on his physical body to fight, but this freak clearly had more tricks up his sleeves. In the next instant, Lin Jin sensed danger ahead of him. It was the blood-colored freak charging at him, its sharp claws closing in on him. At the critical moment, Lin Jin used his finger as a sword and swept it across, shouting, "Break!" It was the divine sword intent Lin Jin learned from the unending nature landscape. Blood splattered everywhere. Lin Jin's cheek was scratched by the freak's claws, while one of the freak's arms fell to the ground with a loud thud. It was actually severed. But the strange thing was, there was no sword energy. At least to Yang Qingshi, Lin Jin looked like he was fooling around. With a simple sweep of his fingers, one of his master's avatar's arms was severed just like that. Objects condensed for magical power are like walking corpses, fearless of pain, impervious to water and fire, and indestructible as long as magical power is not exhausted. Their bodies are indestructible. There are 3 ways to advance, there are 5 ways to break it, which are. Lin Jin calmed down when he saw the information displayed in the museum. In a battle between 2 sides, the biggest taboo was to fight randomly without knowing anything. That would be missing the point. At the very least, it was necessary to know oneself and the enemy. Knowing oneself and knowing one's enemy also had different levels. Some relied on experience and common sense, while others relied on intelligence and probing. On the other hand, Lin Jin had the Museum of Deadly Beasts, so he was able to get to know his enemies in one go. After probing with his silver needles, Lin Jin found out the weakness of this blood-refined beast. Not only that, there was more than one weakness. Speaking of which, other than the old dragon, this was Lin Jin's second-rank 5 pet beast. Hence, even if he knew its weakness, he still had to be careful. Young one, don't try to be mysterious, Patriarch Shui Pao said. He was responding to the needles that pierced his body. Having said that, his feet began sucking in the blood around him, and his severed arm grew back. It was indeed an immortal body. Die! Patriarch Shui Pao pounced at Lin Jin. As he swung his claws, he followed up with another attack. Regardless of whether Lin Jin dodged, blocked, or fought back, the blood-refined beast's steel whip-like tail would come swinging at him. This tail was as tough as steel and extremely fast. If Lin Jin was hit, he would surely die. Previously, many soldiers and their ferocious beasts had died under this whip. Against a rank 5 blood-refined beast, even if it was a low-grade one, Lin Jin would still be at a disadvantage if he fought with his own body. The creature was immortal, while Lin Jin was made of flesh and blood. Be it the claws or the tail, if he were to take a hit, Lin Jin would have to report to the King of Hell. Hence, merging with his beast was no longer a good idea. Almost at the same time, Xiaohua flew out from Lin Jin's arm and enlarged into his giant wolf form, ready to fight the blood-refined beast. Lin Jin quickly took a few steps back to avoid getting caught up in the battle. While he did so, he cast 3 spells on Xiaohua: Bloodlust, Berserk, and Fire Spirit Possession. They were all enhancement spells for pet beasts. Lin Jin's ability to cast 3 at the same time was remarkable. After all, regular cultivators or beast appraisers wouldn't be able to do something like this. Even if they could, their spirit energy levels were far from sufficient. Lin Jin was different. Ever since he started cultivating, his spirit energy level had already exceeded 100 stones, and it was still increasing. Now it was close to 200 stones. Hence, it was enough for him to cast spells continuously. Roar! Waves of energy exploded from Xiaohua's body. Under the Dharma body and fire spirit possession, Xiaohua looked like a giant flaming wolf. With one howl, the surrounding buildings spontaneously combusted and collapsed. Upper rank 4. Patriarch Shui Pao's eyes widened. But so what? A rank 4 is just a rank 4. Possessing rank 5 strength, Patriarch Shui Pao's blood-refined beast launched a frenzied attack. In an instant, the 2 beasts clashed, and the garden was reduced to rubble. One had an undying body, while the other had an yin-yang dharma body. As they fought, flames flew in all directions, and flesh and blood flew everywhere. There was not a single intact house in the assistant minister's residence. If not for the Nebula Barrier Technique's confinement boundary, the damage would have been even greater. Lin Jin took out an intermediate spirit stone and used a spell to absorb the spirit energy. Since this was a battle of life and death, Lin Jin had to use whatever he needed. He couldn't afford to be stingy. Casting the Nebula Barrier and the Sword Intent Cloudblade had consumed a lot of spirit energy. Then he cast the enhancement spell on Xiaohua, which almost depleted all of Lin Jin's spirit energy. He had to replenish it now, or else victory would be impossible. Among all the enemies Lin Jin had encountered, Patriarch Xue Pao was definitely the best, so he couldn't afford to be careless. Moreover, Lin Jin had no choice but to release Xiaohua earlier. After all, with Xiaohua's Beastmaster scroll around, Lin Jin's strength would increase as well. Now that Xiaohua was out of his body, Lin Jin would be in danger if he was ambushed. Instead of Patriarch Xue Pao, Lin Jin had to be wary of Yang Qingshi. The creature had been lurking in the dark, probably planning to launch a sneak attack during the chaos. Lin Jin was truly afraid of this. Later on, he would cast a spell to try and break the blood-refined beast's mana. Otherwise, even if he were to cut this beast into pieces and burn it into energy, it would still be able to regenerate itself. Chapter 383. Lin Jin looked over and happened to meet Yang Qingshi's eyes. The latter's eyes were filled with resentment and hatred. He seemed to be holding something in his palm. Although Lin Jin didn't know what it was, he was sure it was something bad. Lin Jin flicked out a needle, planning to restrain Yang Qingshi first. But to his surprise, the kid was cunning. Noticing that something was amiss, he immediately rolled away, narrowly avoiding the needle. Roar! At the same time, Xiaohua let out a roar. Lin Jin immediately turned around to see a python's tongue coming for him. It was Patriarch Xue Pao's blood-refined beast that had flicked its tongue out, planning to kill Lin Jin in one fell swoop. Speaking of which, Patriarch Xue Pao was a sinister man. He had been hiding this move, all this while only waiting for the right moment to ambush Lin Jin while he was busy dealing with Yang Qingshi. With his life hanging by a thread, Lin Jin understood that he had nowhere to run. Whatever spells he had up his sleeves wouldn't be able to stop this bloody tongue that was as sharp as a sword. Moreover, he couldn't stop it either. Door open. At this critical moment, Lin Jin opened the visitation hall's door. As soon as the door opened, Lin Jin's aura skyrocketed. Then, he raised a finger and unleashed a series of slashes. This time, the accompanying cloud sword will transformed into a blade. Wherever the sword will reached, the bloody tongue, which was at least a dozen meters long, was completely shattered. It was as if it had been chopped into more than 20 pieces on a meat chopping board. Not only that, under the sword intent, the bloody tongue was severed in half of the blood-refined beast's face was sliced off. This misty sword intent was Lin Jin's strongest attack so far. If he hadn't borrowed the museum's aura, Lin Jin wouldn't have been able to perform it even if he had 300 stones of spirit energy. Patriarch Xue Pao, who was initially nonchalant and confident, finally paled. His half-bloodied face was filled with shock. While his opponent was distracted, how could Lin Jin let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Enduring the dizziness and depletion of spirit energy, Lin Jin bit the tip of his tongue, activated spell negation, and spat. In an instant, blood imbued with spell negation power sprayed across the blood-refined beast's face. The blood on Lin Jin's tongue was like hot water splashed on snow. In an instant, half of the blood-refined beast's body melted. Lin Jin was aiming for the blood-refined beast's weakness. According to the Museum of Deadly Beasts, Lin Jin only needed to break the opponent's mana. However, if he simply used spell negation, it might not be effective. That was why Lin Jin thought of using blood as a catalyst. Didn't the other party also use blood as a catalyst to form the blood-refined beast? It was the same routine, the same method. Lin Jin had to react appropriately to catch his opponent off guard. The blood-refined beast had an immortal body because Patriarch Xue Pao's spiritual power was endless. As long as the spiritual power was endless, it could be reborn infinitely. However, as long as the magic power was destroyed, the blood-refined beast would collapse on its own. Xiaohua also took the opportunity to spit out a ball of flames, burning the blood-refined beast. Because its transcendence energy was broken, the blood-refined beast gradually melted under the intense flames. Junior, do you really want to become enemies with me? Patriarch Shui Pao's indignant voice came from the flames. Lin Jin didn't respond. Let my disciple, Yang Qingshi, go. Otherwise, you and I will fight to the death. Junior, you have to think this through. His words came to an abrupt halt, because the blood-refined beast had been completely incinerated. Under the raging flames, its flesh and blood were reduced to ashes. Although the man didn't finish his sentence, the warning in his words was obvious. Fight to the death sounded frightening, especially since Patriarch Shui Pao was no ordinary person. A mere blood-refined beast was enough to force Lin Jin into such a dangerous situation. Hence, the threat he posed was quite significant. However, Lin Jin had already made up his mind. Today, even if the legendary Deluo Jin showed up, he wouldn't show any respect. If he offended him, so be it. If he had to fight to the death, Lin Jin could only wait and see. Moreover, Lin Jin wasn't an innocent little girl from a small mountain village. He wouldn't go with you just because you offered some benefits. This Patriarch Shui Pao was a treacherous man. Who knew if he was just stalling for time? Even if he was lying, what could you do? Hence, it was safer to go at his own pace. Lin Jin was confident in himself. With a museum of deadly beasts, his potential was practically limitless. Moreover, he was able to defeat Patriarch Shui Pao's blood-refined beast clone alone. If the man really came looking for trouble next time, Shunger, Little Five, Goldie, and White Ape would all attack him together. If a one-on-one fight didn't work, they would fight as a group. Show yourself. After dealing with the blood-refined beast, Lin Jin temporarily got rid of his biggest problem. Now, it was time to deal with Yang Qingshi. Although Yang Qingshi had hidden himself, no matter where he hid in the nebula barrier, he couldn't escape Lin Jin's detection. Just like taking off his clothes, there was no use trying to hide. The flames hadn't died out yet. Some were still burning. Although Lin Jin's spirit energy was depleted and he was exhausted, Xiaohua's combat strength was still there. Even without Xiaohua, Lin Jin wasn't afraid of facing Yang Qingshi. Lin Jin shouted, but no one answered. You know you can't hide, but you still refuse to show yourself. Isn't that stupid? Lin Jin cursed. He abruptly turned to the side and was about to make a move when Yang Qingshi, who knew he couldn't escape, finally stepped forward. However, he was no longer as arrogant as he was before. His eyes were filled with fear. Come to think of it, Yang Qingshi was in his 50s and was a well-respected man at headquarters. But right now, his clothes were tattered and his hair was disheveled. He was in a sorry state and no longer had the demeanor he used to have. Lin Jin, I have no grudge against you. Why are you targeting me like this? Even after you found out about the Du family, I had no intention of harming you. I only wanted to leave on my own, so why won't you let me go? Yang Qingshi was baffled. It was true that he had no intention of dealing with Lin Jin at first. After learning that he might have been exposed, he planned to escape. As long as Lin Jin turned a blind eye to his actions, Yang Qingshi would have long been free and unfettered. Lin Jin couldn't be bothered to answer. Yang Qingshi used sorcery to harm the innocent. Once he encountered it, he would intervene. It was that simple. Seeing Lin Jin's gaze, Yang Qingshi trembled in fear. Although he was indignant and resentful, he now understood one thing. He was no match for Lin Jin. Even his master's clone, which he sacrificed his pet beast to summon, was destroyed by Lin Jin. Hence, if he wanted to live, he could only beg. Appraiser Lin, please let me go. Right now, Yang Qingshi was like a dog begging for mercy. He took out something from his robe. It was wrapped in animal skin, and when he opened it, he saw something that looked like an egg. It looked like an egg that was not fully formed yet. Lin Jin could smell an indescribable stench from this unformed egg. An 8-headed viper. Sure enough, Yang Qingshi's next words were, "If you let me go, this 8-headed viper will be yours. This creature will be rank 4 when it's born, and its potential is limitless." Lin Jin took a closer look. The eight-headed viper inside the membrane had already taken shape. Even though it wasn't fully grown, it was already exuding the intimidating aura of a rank 4 beast. However, it was all thanks to the governor of the left that Yang Qingshi would have escaped by now. Hence, not only did Lin Jin thank the lieutenant governor, but he also bowed to the city guards. Flattered, the lieutenant governor quickly returned the gesture. Then, as if remembering something, he said, "Appraiser Lin, please come over for a chat." Lin Jin smiled. The lieutenant governor was a soldier, and soldiers were straightforward by nature. Asking them to put on airs and play tricks would only make things difficult for them. Lin Jin had already noticed the carriage next to the lieutenant governor and even guessed who was inside. Forget it. I still have to meet them. With that thought in mind, Lin Jin walked over. The guards opened up a path and blocked the entire carriage. These guards held military flags in their hands so that outsiders wouldn't be able to see what was happening inside. The lieutenant governor stood respectfully beside the carriage. Then, someone parted the curtains and alighted. This person was Jade Dragon Kingdom's emperor, He Qian. He was also He Qin and He Yu's father. Lin Jin had a good relationship with his daughter, but he didn't have a good impression of the emperor. In fact, he didn't even have a good impression of him. Back then, the emperor was willing to sacrifice his daughter's life to help that old dragon prolong his life. Lin Jin didn't like this. However, the emperor had his own difficulties too. In the end, he even borrowed Curator's hand to eliminate the old dragon. Now, he was a formidable character. This was Lin Jin's first time meeting the emperor. The lieutenant governor quickly said, "Appraiser Lin, why aren't you greeting His Majesty?" This was a reminder. Lin Jin immediately came to a realization and bowed. "Greetings, Your Majesty." He Qian greeted respectfully. "Lord Protector Lin, you may rise." He Qian went over to help Lin Jin up with a friendly expression. Lin Jin had a rank 4 pet beast and was now officially a guardian. Everyone in the Guardian was a guardian of the nation, so it was only right for him to address Lin Jin as Lord Protector Lin. This Lord Protector Lin obviously sounded more superior than Appraiser Lin. Moreover, this title came from Emperor He Qian, which meant that things were different. At the very least, the lieutenant governor was astounded. He knew that His Majesty was rarely this close to another guardian, and it was even less likely for him to help Lin Jin up. The lieutenant governor didn't understand the reason behind this, but great eunuch Yao Sheng, who had always been by the emperor's side, knew exactly why His Majesty was behaving this way. Lin Jin alone wasn't enough. Now that Curator was here, it would be enough. Currently, Jade Dragon Kingdom was facing both internal and external threats. The sudden death of the Jade Dragon deity had caused a chain reaction. Simply put, Jade Dragon Kingdom's borders weren't peaceful right now. He Qian wanted to meet Curator because he wanted to borrow his strength. Now, Lin Jin had to think of a way to deal with him. At this, Lin Jin nodded. "Your Majesty, I will do my best to facilitate this. However, I might need a few days to contact them." Upon hearing Lin Jin's agreement, He Qian was overjoyed. "Of course. Why don't we make it half a month? I will also inform Continent Central and our neighboring countries so that we can deal with the crisis together." Having said that, He Qian took out a wooden box and handed it over. "Appraiser Lin, Curator has helped me eliminate a huge threat, and I will remember that. This is a small token of my appreciation. Please pass it to Curator on my behalf." Lin Jin was about to say that there was no need to go through so much trouble. But when He Qian opened the box, he saw several glistening superior-grade spirit stones that contained spirit energy. Lin Jin swallowed his words. It was superior-grade spirit stones, and there were several of them. This was something that could only be found by chance. Lin Jin accepted it. At this, He Qian was even happier and invited Lin Jin to have some tea. By the time the carriage arrived at the palace gates, it was already dawn. He Qian invited Lin Jin into the palace as a guest, but Lin Jin declined. He Qian didn't force the issue. Tomorrow is the Jade Dragon Festival. I heard that appraiser Lin will be hosting a blessing ceremony at headquarters, so I'll have to go and watch the fun. After getting off the carriage, He Qian said. Of course, Lin Jin couldn't stop him from coming, so he chuckled before bidding him farewell. Back at headquarters, Tan Sun and the others had been up all night. Yang Qingshi had confessed, which meant that Tan Sun's accusations against him were all true. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.